Hey. Welcome. Hello.
The mango frequency.
The mango frequency is live tonight, aka noon, Eastern Standard Time. Welcome, everybody.
Clear.
Let's clear the space, clear the air. Glad to be here. Glad that everyone was waiting so patiently. I appreciate it. We're back in the Rach Talk studio after a long, but not missed, perhaps in my life at least, break from Rachel. Rachel Hollis, our resident self-help entrepreneur boss babe. What do you call her now? Spirituality diva, goddess, bougie bitch that we all love to hate to love. Which one is it? We don't know.
Your girl is a bougie bitch.
We know. Okay, here's just a recap of my life. This is called Kia Talk Live. I've been on a hiatus for Rachel Hollis content because, and I kid you not, and I said this on Reddit already, but my therapist was concerned that I was taking out all my anger and aggression that should be diverted elsewhere to real people in my life at Rachel Hollis. And it was actually possibly preventing me from moving forward in therapy. So I thought, okay, you know what? Let me just take a break, see how it goes. And I was getting, and I hate the word triggered, but I was getting triggered by listening to, so I used to listen to every single podcast, every single YouTube thing that she did, any podcast episodes that she did, because I felt like it was important to know everything she was saying at all times to be able to deliver accurate information. Now, I think that's still true in some ways, but I feel like I've gathered enough information at this point that I can still call out bullshit when I hear it. And I think it's important for me to take some breaks here and there because I was listening to everything, and she puts out like 2 to 3 podcasts a week, up to an hour each. And it's like nonsense most of the time. And it's about her personal vagina bleeding stories. And after a while, it grates on your ears. So I took a little break, but then, and I was planning to do, no matter what, I was planning to cover her in some way today because I'm flying to New York tonight for Christmas. And I figured why not, end the year off right. I probably will stream from New York, but this is like the full official studio setup. So like as like a last Rach Talk of 2022 analysis, let's do one more. And I was going to talk about her video. It's like 6 negative things I no longer do. I hadn't listened to it. I still haven't listened to it. But I suggested it on my Reddit page, my Reddit thread, and people were like, so a lot of her talking about her period once again. And I'm kind of over the period talk with Rachel. So I was like, just as like a little preview of what we're missing out on, she posted it on YouTube. So I only listened to like the first, like 10 seconds, and it was already horrendous. Hold on. So here it is. I stopped doing this and everything changed. Sure. 6 negative habits I stopped doing. Okay. Here's the preview. Here's the hook of this one. Ready?
There was a time when you know, my vagina was bright and shiny like a new penny. There was a time. And
The music.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with what happens when you push babies out of that space, but it's not what it used to be. But I have had a bad habit of tricking myself into believing that I'm going to have a period like I had when I was 22.
Huh? So I just can't put you guys through that. It's really not about me. No, it is. It's about me. Thanks, King Intern. Welcome. But I can't stomach that for an hour. I'm so sorry. I got enough personal period stories of my own. I don't need another woman's stories. So that got nixed, and I'm glad because perfect timing. She always delivers. The Christmas spirit that is Rachel Hollis delivered right on time for a different topic, obviously via the thumbnail and the title of this video. She admits that she's, or at least the company, we're going to talk about the logistics of all of this, is in, financial ruin, essentially. Now, she infers, of course, was how she always does, that now that the problem is solved, she can talk about it. Like, I lied for the last 2 years, making it seem like I was doing great. I'm making a ton of money. But then in reality, now she's saying, well, 2 years ago, I was actually very concerned about my finances. And here's why. I've already listened to this episode, so I have some context. And I also pulled a bunch of other examples of within the last 2 years of her discussing money or finances in some way and how there's a million contradictions. And shout out to Marissa over on Instagram who messaged me and sent me a Rise Together podcast. So that's now Dave Hollis's podcast, but back in 2019 when this episode came out, it is an episode all about being financially aligned as a couple. How ironic is that? So we're going to listen to that as well. I have not listened to that one, so that'll be a blind react. And then if we have time, because I am on a little bit of a time crunch today, just because I have to still pack. Priorities, streaming, packing for flight I'm going to be gone for 12 days. So, I gotta shove a lot of sweaters into my suitcase. But we'll listen to a now deleted YouTube video where Rachel and Dave, when they were still working at Hollis Company together and Dave was CEO, they were previewing 2020. So 2019 was a great big year for them. This is the year that Rachel says she was miserable because she was too successful. Thanks, Samantha Tribble. Give me 1 second. And then she's going to talk about 2020, the pandemic ruined everything. But if you really look at what they were talking about in 2019, their priorities being Quibi, the Rise Fitness app, and something else being their top 2 priorities that year. It's not the pandemic that ruined those two ventures that they claimed were going to be billion-dollar ideas. I think it was just 2 people who were kind of unaware of how fleeting success can be, especially in the self-help space. So that's that. That's the what's coming up. And thank you to Samantha Tribble. Happy holidays and safe travels. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. That's very nice. For that, I say,
peed my pants.
I peed my pants. I'm sure there was at least one pee your pants anecdote in that 6 things I no longer do anymore video. And shout out to Kendra. Woo, woo, woo.
I'm not drinking the Rachel Hollis Kool-Aid.
I don't know if you're here, Kendra, but Kendra has been just pumping out those videos. She did one about Heidi Powell. She did one about Brittany Dawn. You are killing the game, girl. And we love it. And also,
it's okay to cry.
One final piece of housekeeping before we move on. Blaze Goddess, damn, girl. Thank you so much. Blaze Goddess says, happy holidays with a hippie. Aw, for 18 stinking dollars.
18 stinking dollars. It is 18 American dollars.
I can't forget about Dave. I'm glad we're going to be listening to Dave's voice for a little bit today. I can't wait to hear more amazing tales from Dave.
I'm too tall to run.
I'm too tall to run. And we're also going to hear about the former Hollises before they got divorced.
They truly have it all.
They truly had it all. Thanks, Blaze Goddess. You are the true MVP, as always. Now, one more piece of housekeeping. I want to thank everybody for donating to the stream. That was the first ever fundraiser stream on this channel, at least. And it was this video, if you were here. Rachel Hollis leaves retreat. When was this from? 2 weeks ago. Okay, so I lied. So I was like, I took a month off from Rachel Hollis. I took a month collectively. All the weeks that I've taken off in between. God, this feels like so long ago when we did this. Anyways, the donations were very successful. The fundraiser was very successful. In total, we all raised together as a community, manatee, $900. I was blown away. I set my goal was 500 and I thought it would take all month to get there if we got there at all. And that night we went over 500 by a lot. It was like got to 700. And then people on replay, shout out replay people. Woo woo. Who's on replay?
There's Colleen.
There's Colleen. So that all went directly to the Save the Manatee Club. So you're helping save manatees. Thank you so much. And then the special surprise that will be announcing right now. In addition to the $900 that you guys all donated to the fundraiser directly, I also decided to put my money where my mouth is and donate $500 of my own money to adopting a manatee named Zelda in honor of this channel. So everyone now can tell their friends and family that they officially have adopted 1% of a manatee named Zelda that lives in the Florida Keys. Now, Zelda, there's a bunch of options for which manatee you could adopt. And if you want to adopt your own, you can go to their website and you can adopt one by donating a certain amount. But I chose Zelda specifically because Taro, when I got her at the shelter, her first name was Link, which is a Zelda character. And Steven loves Zelda. That's like his favorite game of all time. So when I saw Zelda, I was like, we have to adopt Zelda. And if you go to the website, you can also find information about Zelda, and I'll try to update, ever so often about how Zelda is doing. But they're real manatees. They really are. They're tracked somehow, so they go. I guess people go and volunteer to follow them and like see them and write down information when they come up. So yay, we have Zelda in the house. And it's thanks to everyone who watches these streams that I'm able to do this at all. And it was really special. So we've adopted Zelda for 1 year. So whenever I made the payment, which was I think a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, we'll have to do it again. So the pressure's on to keep watching the channel forever and ever so that Zelda can keep getting delicious lettuce in the waters that she frequents. No, I don't think they actually give them anything for us, but it's just to help in the conservation efforts. So there you go, everybody. That is Zelda. Zelda, our official Kia's World manatee. Woo! Oh, also, this is my birthday gift. This is my Christmas gift from Steven, one of them. And I have a mug that matches too, but this is Taro's replacement when Taro decides she doesn't want to join the stream because she's busy doing, outdoor activities. We can have Taro, I can hug Taro while we're doing the stream. So that's it. That's the juicy information about my life and what's going on and on this channel. And now we can get to the real meat of things, which is Rachel Hollis is broke? ? Hell yeah. Well, no, I guess she is broke or was, but now isn't, but she was. So you should feel bad for her. And she's also a big martyr, in case you didn't know. So that's where we're starting today. Let's talk about money, part 1. Or no, this is old. I lied. Hold on. This is the old one that we talked about way long ago. That was the one where she's like manifesting money. And the reason I brought that one up is because this one is from 2022. This is from February 8th of this year. And so you're going to hear that she already has said that she was like in major debt at this point. But this is the type of content she's making, again, based on her own life experience, is her only source of expertise. Money is something that people don't like to talk about. You might even feel like you are supposed to talk about it. Okay, that's a misprint. You might even feel like you are supposed to talk about it. I guess she meant not supposed to talk about it. Like it's a taboo subject that's private, behind closed doors. Recently on the podcast, I did a series on mindset. Go and check out these episodes if you haven't yet. And when I was designing those episodes, I thought the most obvious one would be a money mindset, but I didn't record it because I knew that talking about money might be problematic for people. Women especially need to be having conversations about money and finances and what they represent. We're totally unrepresented in the space. Okay. Susie Orman, anyone? No? Okay. And there aren't a lot of honest conversations about how you attract money into your life, and also how your childhood plays such a big role in the finances, the revenue, the success financially that you experience as an adult. So I told myself to stop being such a weenie and just do an episode. So that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about money. I just want to be clear. I don't want to have a conversation about money to offer you my best investing advice or money saving tips. Where I feel like I have expertise is in growing up poor and building a business as an entrepreneur. So even if it's taboo, I hope you enjoyed this episode about money. Okay, keep that in mind when we listen to this episode. So that's February of this year. Now this episode is going to be about how that's all actually bullshit and she's not that good at money or with money, or she might have built an empire, but she crashed it down pretty quick, which I think is not usually a great, a great tenet of a successful entrepreneur. So this is called A Quick Word, AQW, which I think is a little silly of a way to title your podcast, but okay, because not everyone knows what that is. How to level up your gratitude and become more grateful. Okay, now how does this tie into her being broke? We're going to find out right now, everybody. Here we go.
It's Rachel, and this is a quick word on leveling up your gratitude. When I was little,
it's very Gary Vee of her to have like these new sound bites in between the words. If I was making a podcast, I'd be like, a quick word.
Am I the only hippie
With
Rach?
Okay.
One of my friends' moms had a cross stitch framed on her wall. It was the 80s, guys. So maybe some of you who are similar ages know what I'm talking about. But
cross stitching, I think that still exists and existed before the 80s.
This particular cross stitch said, "God bless this mess." And I was thinking about that this week as part of a gratitude practice. I know so many of you, like me, really put effort into practicing gratitude as a part of your everyday life. And I have a little bit of a perspective shift for you to bring into your gratitude practice this week. What if you try and find gratitude for the things you usually feel annoyed about?
What if I was the only hippie? Oh yeah, I haven't, again, going back, I have not listened to every single minute of Rachel Hollis content in the last month. So this is through the grapevine, through Reddit. But someone said she has the flu or had the flu this month, she said on her podcast, which is specifically what she said she is not going to have and doesn't need a flu shot for.
You are not required to get the flu this year.
Okay, but she got it. So I guess Rachel is no longer saying that she controls when she gets sick by her own mindset. But anyways, so now she's about to talk about Louise Hay without naming Louise Hay this time. So I wonder if she got pushback against Louise Hay and her obsession for a while about that. But this principle that she's about to discuss, which is loving your bills and kissing your bills, is directly from How to Heal Your Life. Now, did Louise steal that from someone else? Probably, but that was written in the 80s. So Rachel's sort of passing it off. She's like, I read somewhere. Okay, but you recommended this book to your audience specifically with the author's name before. So now she's kind of like unremembering that. I find it a little suspicious, but whatever.
What if you find gratitude for the things that typically frustrate you? This feels like gratitude level 2. Like if we were playing Super Mario Brothers, this is like when you got into the castle and you were going to fight King Koopa. This is that level of gratitude. Not just can I find gratitude for the good stuff, but can I find gratitude for the things that typically annoy me?
Wow, revolutionary.
So my favorite example of this is gratitude for paying bills. Paying bills. I started 2020 with a thriving business. 60 employees.
Okay, so here we go. So somehow this is related to, hey guys, quick word here about gratitude. You know, maybe you should consider being grateful for all the things you do have, you spoiled bitches. Like, okay, that's what she's saying. Now we're going to go into financial ruin conversation time. So she's saying in 2020, she started with a thriving business. Okay, that's when Dave was at the helm. You know, and there's some discrepancy about when he left, because he officially left when they got divorced, which was in 2020, June, but he was already sort of on the outs and he had already downgraded his title before that. So it's sort of unknown as to when all that happened behind the scenes. But that was in 2020. So she's saying she had 60 employees, okay, in 2020, thriving business. Now she's going to blame the pandemic, but there's several points I want to make along the way, but I'll let it ride.
Differences as far as the eye can see.
Okay, let's go back just a second because I cut it halfway in the middle of the sentence.
Paying bills. I started 2020 with a thriving business. 60 employees.
So it should be 60 employees.
Conferences as far as the eye can see. Really doing what I felt like was very purpose-driven work, really proud of it, really proud of the business we had created. And then like a lot of companies inside of COVID, everything shifted. I had a business that was built around in-person events, and suddenly we couldn't be in person anymore.
Okay, this is her line that she's used since then about her business. She says, my business runs on in-person events, right? And that's why I've struggled to, you know, get going, and like the business suffered. However, she did pivot to online and did the first virtual rise, and I cannot find it. I need to find what piece of content, there's so much, where she says like she was financially rewarded very well for that, doing it all live and getting so many people from all over the world. But in the PBS video that we watched way back when, hold on, the interview where she did during the pandemic, they went to the restaurant in Austin. I covered it during the hurricane that was happening in Florida. So about that time period, it was called To Dine For with Kate Sullivan. This one, she doesn't talk about the profit that she got since pivoting during the pandemic, but in that interview, she claimed that she had grown her audience 500% during the pandemic, and you know, had the online conference. So unless you're doing something completely wrong, shouldn't an audience growth of 500% lead to more sales if your material is good? So the fact that she's like, oh, we couldn't do in-person events. I worked so many like hybrid events during the pandemic. That was like my bread and butter for the first year and a half of when I had my business start, where people were doing like live streaming, and Tony Robbins did all these live streams. I mean, he's like, got a conference every 5 seconds, and he's gone up over time, during the pandemic. He's gotten more people and has figured out how to bring in a virtual component. So I'm not really buying. It's not like, if you ran a company, I don't know, something like so in person that you couldn't avoid it, like a coffee shop or something, those people had to pivot and do, curbside orders. Like, this is not an excuse enough to say, well, everyone's $1 million company totally failed. Also, to point out at this point, the Hollis company received over $1 million in PPP loans. Now, this is from ProPublica. They did a tracking, very helpful journalistic endeavor here with data. They have a searchable thing on their website where you can search any company and see what they were forgiven for PPP loans. So they got a loan of, I don't understand this part, but they got a loan of $998,000, but they were forgiven for $1 million. And it says 750,000 of that went to payroll and 250,000 went to utilities. Now, Rachel and Hollis company, or I guess Rachel's company, the Hollis company, owned the building in which they had the business in Austin. Now, that was sold, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, in 2021. So whatever money was made from that, which I'm assuming there was money made from that, a poker room now owns it. It's like there's money here. So unless there's money here, and there was several different ways that other companies had taken, control of their business to still succeed during this time. So this bullshit excuse that, the pandemic happened, I do live events, and, of course we failed, is so ridiculous to me. Anyways, that was just my little, are we living in reality right now? No. The answer is no. But she's gonna, again, be the hero of this story, no matter what. Here we go. I'm gonna go back another 15 seconds.
Created. And then, like a lot of companies inside of COVID, everything shifted. I had a business that was built around in-person events, and suddenly we couldn't be in person anymore. And I remember that time so clearly. I wonder if any of you remember things like this, with everyone sort of looking at me like, what do we do? Do we go home? Do we have everyone stay here? Like, none of us knew what was coming. And even when we went into lockdown, I think we all thought it was going to be for 2 weeks. And it was like dominoes falling, one after another. We were like, oh, well, this conference we have 2 months from now, that'll be fine. And then that we had to push. But the one that we have planned for the fall, that'll be okay. But then the Rise run, that'll be good. It was one after another. We had to cancel and push things.
Okay, and everyone else in the entire world was dealing with the same shit. She acts like she's am I the only one who experienced a pandemic? Am I the only person in a position of power who experienced a global pandemic? Because it sounds like, you're the only one who's had to go through this. I didn't know that it was going to be it was going to be more than 2 weeks. Yeah, no shit. No one did. And somehow we're all here functioning still. So what? How are you different in any way? It's like she's presenting this whole thing as if okay, guys, here's the reason that I'm broke, or here's the reason why I'm such a good person. In reality, it's like everyone else had the same circumstances. Actually, you had a much better circumstance than everyone else, or most people in this world.
And we had, like all businesses, the opportunity to declare bankruptcy in those areas. For a conference, it's very expensive. It's several $1 million to produce a conference. And for any of those that we had planned, you have to put down that money in advance. You have to reserve the venue, and you have to pay for vendors, and you have to do all these things. And there were millions of dollars that had been guaranteed to vendors of all of these conferences. And the advice from every executive around me was each individual conference was its own, little business. So you could declare bankruptcy on this specific conference, and then you won't have to pay for those vendors. But
Thanks, hippie Kansas girl. Hippie Kansas Girl says, am I the only hippie that knows that Rach laid off almost all of her employees once the PPP money ran out? Yeah, so she's going to talk about that, and she's going to admit that her once thriving business of 60 employees went down to 3. And I believe one of those is including herself, if I'm not wrong. I think, and I don't even know if these people that work for her are full-time. I have a feeling they're probably freelance contractors, which is nothing wrong with that. But again, this is someone who's touting themselves as like entrepreneur, expert, gonna tell you how to run your business. Like Rach Talk Live was originally, marketed as like a hangout gal pal. Your girl Rach is going to tell you stories over wine. Okay, but then that didn't work. Then she pivoted to, this is going to be inspirational content for entrepreneurs across the country, for women to be inspired to go after their dreams, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so why am I listening to someone who literally tanked their successful business? And other than this, Sirius XM contract, which who knows how much she got from that, no idea. Other than that, has not had a successful run at anything since 2020. Since 2019, really. It was like the personal scandal of the divorce, then Toiletgate, then coming out with all this content that is not aligned with anything that she's done before. She made an apology podcast, which also, side note about that, the Skinny Confidential. There's an article that just came out in Bloomberg that specifically names the Skinny Confidential podcast as a podcast in which people can pay up to $20,000 per episode to appear on the channel or on their podcast, which is insanity. And Bloomberg was essentially accusing that podcast, the Skinny Confidential podcast, the one that Rachel was on to defend herself after Toiletgate, that they weren't always super clear about the payment that was going on behind the scenes. So in one of the episodes, it was like a nutrient guy, someone who's trying to, hawk some nutrient crap to you, that the woman who asked Rachel all these like softball questions and like defended her because she's a mom, so we can't criticize her for her business decisions, which is ridiculous. In that episode that it was paid for, allegedly, she's like, oh, I've told all my friends and family about nutrients. Oh, I'm just telling everyone. So she's full of shit. And then they weren't specifically saying this is a paid interview. So I have some high suspicions that Rachel may have paid to be featured on that podcast. Now, I can't prove that, obviously, and they're not necessarily ethically sound to trust, so it seems. So I have my suspicions. But anyways, Rachel has handled none of this right to be able to get back on top. So why would you listen to her advice is beyond me. Anyways, thank you, hippie Kansas Girl. We appreciate that very much, and so does Rachel.
Am I the only hippie?
I'm a big time hippie, and I'm very woo-woo.
And also, to hippie Kansas Girl's point, she's going to say like, I owed millions of dollars to all these vendors. And because I'm such a good, kind-hearted, caring person, I paid back those vendors because I care. I laid off my entire staff of, 55 people in the process, but I care about small business owners. It's like something is off here. I'm sorry. Something is not right here. Why didn't you just get up earlier, Rachel, and figure this out?
Most people won't get up at 4 a.m.
Get up at 3 a.m. and figure out how to pay your staff. How about? And King Intern, thank you. King Intern says, don't forget that the pandemic was a blessing. Yes, we should look at these things, guys, and just be grateful for them. Be grateful for your bills. Be grateful for the pandemic, because now we have time to be with our children and relax and learn how to cross stitch different phrases from the 80s that, no one else would know about from before then. Yes, it's such a time of reflection, guys. Come on. Yes, I agree with you, King Intern. And for that, I say,
I'm super freaking privileged.
I'm super freaking privileged to have this pandemic that killed millions, or a million. It's so great for me, though. Thank you, King Intern. And that fat Greg says, picked a character saying, you rock, while showing their pumped bicep. This is what it looks like, by the way, when you pick those characters. The what do you say? The transcripted description of them. I love it. Thank you, that fat Greg. For that, I say,
I'm going to send you so much love and so much light and so much good energy today because I feel like you need it.
damn.
Unfollow me.
Thanks, that fat Greg. I appreciate it. And then finally, Alaska Blatundra says picked a pile of poop with a face. I like it. Let's find the perfect one for that.
18 stinking dollars.
18 stinking dollars with a face.
Not your poop again.
Not your poop again, Dave. Come on. Let's get serious here. Thank you, Alaska Blatundra. Okay, back to it. That was my rant. And thank you for all the members, by the way. Thank you for everyone for becoming a member. If you want to use the emojis, become a member. Any of the tiers, you can use the emojis. We only opened one extra slot. So there's like a fairly large amount. It's like we have to get 20 new members, I believe, to get the next emoji. So there's already some made that we have to build up the membership. So if you'd like to join and you're thinking about it, if you have 19 friends, we can open and unlock another emoji. Now, this is a YouTube thing. This is not a me thing, FYI. Okay, back to it.
That we work with, they're small businesses. They're not huge corporations. They're not people who could just afford to suddenly not have this money that was promised to them. And it just felt so wrong. I paid for it all. And I have spent.
Okay. Thank you, JLB Nerdy. Perfect timing. JLB Nerdy says, happy holidays, Kia. Glad I didn't unfollow you, even though I don't own your book. I wish I had a book that you could not own.
Why do you follow me if you don't already own my book?
And just as a sentence filler.
Oh, I love that sound.
That's for you, JLB Nerdy. Thank you very much. Okay, let me go back. So she's saying here again, it's not just she's not paying these big companies, which I'm surprised that she wouldn't if she's spending millions of dollars on a conference. What small businesses are you hiring? I mean, maybe that's true, but like, I'm sure there are larger companies or mid-sized companies that are working in the event space. And I don't know. I'll just take her word for these things, but I find them to be highly suspicious just generally, but I'll allow them. But what she's saying here is that she owed millions of dollars for these conferences that, she was going to put on that got canceled because of the pandemic. And that she, in the kindness of her heart, did not listen again to the advice of her fellow colleagues. She listened to her gut this time and decided not to declare bankruptcy on these projects. I'm sure it had nothing to do with her, personal persona or, her expert advice maybe being thrown off in some way. But that she's just a good person and she wanted to pay these small business owners. I'm not buying it, but if you want to buy it, okay. I'm open to changing my mind.
Huge corporations. They're not people who could just afford to suddenly not have this money that was promised to them. And it just felt so wrong. I paid for it all. And I have spent the last, we're going into 2023, so almost 3 years, paying down millions of dollars in debt. Millions. Rather than default on any of the promises that we made to those vendors. And
I'm confused about this whole thing. It's like, okay, so you could have went bankrupt, but you didn't. I think there's, as knowing a little bit about bankruptcy, not that I went personally, but I know a little bit of the logistics of it. I don't know about business bankruptcy, but you have to qualify for that. You can't just decide willy-nilly, like, I'm just going to go bankrupt for because I don't want to pay this fee or whatever. I want to pay this client. And shouldn't they get PPP loans too? There's something very sketchy, and I'm no business expert, obviously, but this story is being told as if she's like a heroic figure that has beaten the odds of this like horrible corporate America that just screws over everybody, but she's doing it differently. I have a feeling she signed these contracts incorrectly or had some sort of deal in which like there is no built in, like if an emergency happens, you know, there's insurance, like there's no insurance, nothing. Like I'm just so confused by this. This seems like somebody's fault, not in a heroic way.
Essentially, it meant that I went into crazy debt in the business that I have been paying off. And I cannot possibly explain how stressful that was. And when I started the process.
How about you try? Also, she bought a new house in Austin because she got divorced. She claimed she paid Dave off, so she had to give him, you know, alimony or whatever. She's never gone into the details, but she's claimed several times she's paid him off, paid my ex off, as she refers to him now. She has had a tour that she traveled across the country that did not sell very well. She's gone to Hawaii several times, and she almost inferred that she was trying to live there full time at one point. She sort of backtracked off of this, but this was like last year or this year she was talking about these things. Dave still owns the car or the house that, you know, the kids lived in when they were a couple in Austin. She's traveled to Europe. I mean, what's the pressure here? I'm missing I need the violin music for this story. I didn't get to go on my private jet 50 times this year. I only got to go 49, and it was so hard, you guys. It was so hard. Like, what did you give up? I want to know the details, please. The only thing you gave up is your staff, which is, you know, more of a problem for them supporting their families than it is for you. I don't have 50 people who, you know, just worship me and are, you know, dressing in brunch chic so that I can promote them. I don't have 50 people I can control at all times. 60 people. Jeez. Yeah, and a good point, Taylor. Taylor says, don't forget all the money she's probably spent at Dr. Amen clinics and seed cycling. Yeah, she's seeing these experts about her hormones and, you know, going to spiritual retreats and then leaving and not worrying about the price, I'm assuming. So cry me a river that it's so hard to pay back millions of dollars in business debt that you owe. It's like, sorry, I do not give a shit at all.
I felt like there were all of these people and everyone like so into the company and so into all the things we were doing. And then as life happened with COVID and having to cancel things, it was like one thing after another just sort of fell away. And then I was standing in the midst of the remnants of all of these choices made by other people, contracts signed by other people who no longer worked with me. They had gone.
All these decisions made by other people, I had to deal with the consequences. Aren't you the CEO? I mean, I guess at some point in 2019 she wasn't, but aren't you the leader of this company? Aren't you the boss babe that we were promised you were to give advice to us boss babes? Oh, all the contracts were signed by other people. It wasn't me. So not only was it a mistake that she learned along the way. No, now it's going to be blaming the team once a fucking again. Here we go. I just want to go back. I keep going back. I'm sorry, but I like to hear the full sentence.
Standing in the midst of the remnants of all of these choices made by other people, contracts signed by other people who no longer worked with me. They had gone off to greener pastures, and I was here, you know, paying off contracts that I didn't even know existed. And truthfully,
that's a leadership issue. If you have contracts that are signed because you were too busy or whatever, or if that person signed a contract and they were not supposed to, that's either an issue with Dave or an issue that you could sue over. Like, I was not aware of this debt and this was not okayed by me. Like, this is not just like, I'm a victim of my own staff that sabotaged me because they were jealous of my success. Like, that's what I think she thinks here.
I talk to you about this now because I'm at the end of that process. In the midst of it, in the midst of fighting to keep people employed, I kept most of the employees employed all through 2020, fighting to keep.
You're given nearly $700,000 specifically for payroll. I would hope so. I think you physically had to, because you were given the money from the government. You had to adhere to certain payroll procedures. So that's not really your own choice. I kept the employees as long as I could. Yeah, you were given tax dollars to do so. Shut up. What are you talking about? I did it. I could have fired them earlier, but I chose not to. I think the government told you, hey, you're going to be, defrauding people if you take this for payroll purposes and don't pay your staff. Okay, cool.
On jobs, fighting to find money to pay off these vendors, working ceaselessly, all of these things while going through a divorce. Well, just like so much was happening that I began to have insane levels of anxiety surrounding money and finances. And every time I would, make a payment to pay down that debt, I just would be sick to my stomach. And it would be this reminder of like, holy shit, how am I going to do this? Where am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other,
I'm sorry. This is so unrelatable to every single person listening to this, unless they are, Rachel Hollis's own ears. Like, what are you talking about?
I want to be relatable.
You have a roof over your head. Like, no one was firing you. You know how many people got laid off, me included, got laid off during the pandemic and had really no idea how they were going to pay their rent? And on the other side of that, people who own properties and are like, having this guaranteed income of like renters paying, and now they're not paying. And what are they going to do? Are they going to like foreclose, get the liens put on their, like, there's real issues that went on during the pandemic financially, and people were panicking. Like, my kids are home and I have to work at a job that requires me to be there for, 9 hours on the computer while my kids are like screaming and like doing classes online. I cannot imagine. And the fact that she's putting this podcast out there as if like, oh, everyone should feel sympathy for me because I had to pay down business debt. I was just so turned off. I mean, I've already I can never recover. Like, there's no recovery arc for me with Rachel Hollis. But if I had any hope for her, this is, again, squashing it completely down whatsoever. And Kimberly Cosse, it's going to come up in a second, but Kimberly Cosse, thank you so much. Kimberly says, if we go by her rules, she manifested these problems for herself by making selfish choices and lying to her audience. Yes, and she would also say, oh, I manifested this for my own good, to learn the lesson of paying back people so that I could know that I'm a good person deep down inside. And that's what really counts, because that's what she's going to say ultimately. Is like, she's so grateful to be able to pay down this millions of dollars of debt, even though none of it's her fault. And even though, everyone screwed her over and it doesn't matter that she was the one who wanted to keep everyone, still, she is the victim here.
You are privileged AF.
Yeah, we know.
This situation is a red flag.
This whole situation is a red flag. Thank you, Kimberly Cosse.
Kind of don't even know how I'm still here, how I managed to dig out of this hole. And I just kept clinging to this idea that I was doing the right thing, that I didn't renege on all of the people who were holding conference tickets, that I didn't remove.
The thing is with that, it's like, too, like, oh, I'm so glad that I didn't renege on my offers or whatever. Like, so if you bought a conference ticket, what you were considering saying like, too bad, suck my dick, like, what are you going to say to them? Like, I think you are contractually obligated to give them something. And if you didn't, then you would owe them money. I don't know how the bankruptcy, again, works with businesses, but I don't think you can just get to walk away from all of your customers unless you are never able to do it again. And I think she wanted to have the opportunity to continue to profit this way, because she knows that this is her only chance, unless she does something completely different, to make money. So again, I'm sort of missing the point here of like, well, how are you the hero here?
That financial support that those vendors believed that they had from us, that I didn't make decisions that probably other, more savvy business people would do because they felt wrong in my heart. And that meant a massive amount of discomfort for me, but I just kept walking in faith. I felt like I was doing what my creator and the universe was guiding me to do.
How nice.
And just one step in front of the other, dug myself out of this massive hole. Massive. Like I literally.
And you gotta remember, okay, so what has she done since 2020? She's had a Rise conference in which 40 people attended in person, and like, I don't know for sure how many people attended online, but when I was there in the morning, when they allowed you to see how many other people were there, it was 200. So 205 or 245 people were, bought Rise tickets. So she said she lost money on that live event. She said that during Rise. She's like, I don't do these because I want to make money. I do these for you, to help you through your trauma or whatever the fuck. So, okay, so that wasn't a money-making experience. The tour, I cannot imagine made very much money. I mean, the production value was zero. There was her on stage, but, they traveled by car for a lot of it, some of it. And then she had to fly back to, Austin, presumably, and then go to all the venues. But I don't think she's gone to LA a bunch of times. Like I said, she went to Europe several times. Like, I don't think she's really pinching pennies for herself, at least. So what did you do? You continued your podcast. You continued a YouTube channel that does not, from what I can understand, make very much money. She gets like 2,000 views on a video on a good day, and that's not going to bring you an income. I'll tell you right now, that's not going to bring you an income that can afford 4 children, a mansion, an alimony check, and several trips. I'm sure her boyfriend's paying for some of this, but she's making it seem like she's, done the impossible. What did you do? Walk us through the steps of what you did to bring yourself out of millions of dollars of debt. I would love to know.
I can't even believe how I can find myself here and talking to you guys about this without bawling, because it was the most stressful situation in my life. And I felt honestly like abandoned. The reason I tell you this story is because in the midst of this, man, did I learn so much. But one of the most important lessons I learned was about what we attract into our lives. It's when I really began to study like abundance mindset versus scarcity. It's when I really started to unpack how I found myself in this situation.
It's really when I started to become manipulated by the spiritual space in which everything is just and right. So if something bad happens to me, it's just because that I made a bad choice, but I can make it right by thinking better thoughts and being better. So if good things happen to me, then I don't have to feel bad about bad things happening to other people. Yeah, that's when I started to manipulate myself into that mindset.
How I ended up here. And one of the things I learned was the idea of being grateful when you pay a bill. And I had the opposite of that. I grew up without money. I came into my early 20s, still broke as a joke, working 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet, really familiar with that. I found this passage along the way that talked about the idea of every time you paid a bill, every time you signed your name on a bill.
She said, okay, again, that comes from Louise Hay, her famous book, You Can Heal Your Life. It's all about everything is your fault. That happens. You have cancer, your fault. You thought bad. You got into a car accident, your fault. You must have wanted that for some reason because the universe doesn't make mistakes. That is the whole book. I did a whole review about it. It's horrible. So that's where that love your bills thing comes from. Now she's saying that she had just discovered that like this year. But now she's saying, along the way, I came across this passage, which the author I will not name. It's like so weird the way she's posing this whole thing.
That you would take a moment and find gratitude for the bill because you had the money to pay it. So I was looking at it, I was so stressed out because I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? This is so much. And it doesn't feel like this debt is going anywhere. But then I learned this practice of like, thank you, God. Yes, I am paying so much money. And I'm working so hard to be able to just survive.
Rachel, shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Working so hard just to survive. That is the most, I don't know what the adjective is, but you're an imbecile. If you truly believe that, you are a complete imbecile. I'm just working so hard just to survive. You know, you don't need a mansion to survive in this world. You know, you don't need, $300 recycled sweaters to survive in this world, right? Your ex-husband, hasn't had a job in like 2 years and has just bought like $1 million property and a Tesla, and he seems to be doing fine. So something going on here is inaccurate. And the fact that you think that you're just trying to survive and the lifestyle that you've led. And also in her podcast, she's like, I work like 3 hours a day and I make a ton of money. Okay, so you could work another job if you really wanted to. You want to go do telemarketing at night while your kids are asleep to make ends meet? I'm sure that could be arranged for you if you really are struggling that hard. Like, it's the victimhood of this woman is astronomical. I cannot believe those words were uttered from her mouth. I'm just trying to survive. And also, yeah, she was married when she was like 20. They met when she was 18. I believe they were married when she was 20, but they were like engaged when she was 19. I sometimes struggle because in the last year or so, I've sort of gotten a hold of my financial woes, and I'm like, oh, I struggle to be able to explain it now. Like, well, I was really struggling 2 years ago. I didn't have money as a kid, but now I'm fine. So I shouldn't really be in these circles, like commiserating like I used to be, because I have like gotten a handle on my debt. She hasn't had any financial struggle since she was like 18 years old. Like when you were a kid, that's like any kid growing up poor. Like she's lived more of her life as a rich, privileged woman than she has as a poor child or a poor working adult. She had her own business by the time she was like 23. So again, these sound like choices, not, the society's way of keeping you down and that you've gone against the grain. This is like, I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, I'm working and doing all these things. I'm not even thriving over here. I'm not gaining. I'm just surviving. But there's also...
Why don't you be great? Are you kidding me? Again, why don't you be grateful for all... I'm not thriving. You're not thriving. You're able to pay back millions of dollars of debt and maintain the lifestyle you have? You're insane.
A scenario in that where I could have, just like you have, just like I have in the past, like we all know what it feels like to not have the money to pay a bill. So if you have the resources, that's a blessing. When you're grouchy about the laundry or the dirty dishes are a sign that you had food to eat for dinner. Laundry, I mean...
Okay, so now we should feel guilty for being annoyed by our life. Oh, we have dirty dishes. I'm annoyed by it. You should be grateful. You had food for dinner. Okay, this specific one is so funny because this is what she claimed during the Skinny Confidential podcast was the entire reason that Toiletgate happened. She claims that during the live stream that she did, that there was a woman who said, my dishes are disgusting in my house. My house is dirty, but I'm depressed and I have guilt about it. And Rachel said, which I think is a good answer, she said, who cares about the dishes? If you're depressed, focus on that first. People will survive. Your family will live if you're dirty, your dishes are dirty. And if you have the money, get a maid. And that's how this whole thing started. That's like the second that her career just like went down from like bad to worse was that moment right there. And it's funny that now, and she, on the podcast, she defended herself and said, I was just defending a woman with depression. And the reason that I even, got so angry was because people were piling on and bullying her for being depressed. That never happened. That's bullshit. I've proven that like 17 times already. If you want to watch it, it's like in the videos that I've made. But now she's going to say, if you have dirty dishes, you should be grateful for that and stop bitching and complaining because that actually means you had food to eat last night. Okay, got it. So we're coming full circle. Okay.
That's a symbol for all kinds of things. You've got the money for those clothes. You've got a washer dryer or access to a washer dryer. You have the body to physically do the laundry for yourself or your family. There's a million different ways that you can find blessings in the things that you usually feel frustrated by. That perspective shift changed everything. Everything, y'all. And you will never convince me that that shift in my thinking isn't how I turn things around financially. That thought process and that abundance, like, yep, God leads you to it. She's going to lead you through it. There's a reason this is happening. We're going to keep walking in faith. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to get this done. We're going to chip away at this $1 at a time, and we're going to get to the other side of it. And if you've ever...
She's so delusional. She's so delusional. It is insane how... This just proves how privileged of a life she has led, that she thinks that this is something that will be understood and relatable to any one of her audience members. I don't care if you are a privileged person. There is no one that is paying millions of dollars of debt and thinking, I'm just surviving. And then again, having the lifestyle that she has, which includes travel, which includes, everything that you would need as a person in life to be considered wealthy.
Read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Or if you haven't read it, please get this book. Because I ended up reading that book after I had gone through this process, and I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's it. Basically, the entire concept is that the thing that feels like the hardest season in your life, the hardest thing in your life, the hardest issue you've ever come up against, when, not if, when you handle that, when you get to the other side of that, when you get through it, that is the answer to everything you've been looking for. For real. Coming through all of this in the business and holding on to my integrity, even at the cost of what it did to my anxiety, having that much financial responsibility that I was digging out of, that changed me forever. Cool. In the best way.
Of course it did.
In the best freaking way. The obstacle is the way.
Welcome,
But
Katie.
not only that, finding gratitude in the hardest seasons, finding the blessing in the messy, finding the good stuff in the things you usually complain about, that's a superpower. That's a superpower. I want to challenge you this week, this month, this year to level up the gratitude practice. Because this one changes everything.
Cool. The fact that she thinks that 2 years is a long time to struggle with, debt of that size is, again, shocking. Like people who have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of debt that is on credit cards or whatever, the fact that anyone could pay that off in 2 years is like a miracle for a lot of people. Sometimes, and again, this is almost shaming people who need to go bankrupt. And that's something that a family member of mine was dealing with. And I was like, you need to get a grip. Who cares if you're going bankrupt? Because it says like bankruptcy, it's like a scarlet letter you have to wear on your, lapel or whatever. Like you are never going to pay this off. Like looking at the amount of debt they had, it's like, you need help. Let's go talk to the attorney to see what they have to say. And they were like, yes, like you are like the highest level. There's like chapter 13, chapter 7. And it's different depending on how much of a problem you're in. And it was like, this person was like needed the biggest help ever. But there was this stigma that, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm like, reneging on my, my obligations to the credit card company, to, Target credit card. It's like these places they should at least have many, many ways that is, handled. That's why the court is there. That's why this program exists, to give people a second chance. So So not many people listening to this podcast are going to be business owners with millions of dollars of assets. Most people are probably moms, mamas, as she calls them, ladies, girls, who, may be considering bankrupting themselves as a person, and then hear this and go, I need to be a good person and follow my heart and pay these poor, executives at Walmart or at, Live Nation because they really need my money and I promised them the money. I just don't think that's the greatest message to give. Like, that's the message that has been delivered from what I am hearing here. Now, that sounds like the end. I don't know what this is. I don't know if I got this far.
Guys, I have the coolest idea. Let's give back.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay, I guess that's the end, I think. Unless this is a 3-minute commercial. Maybe she comes back at the end. She's got this thing now, because I guess Dave did charity. He's like, I'm going to match donations. So now Rachel has to be like, I'm charitable too. It's not just Dave, it's me as well. So now she's got this thing where it's like, I'm going to pick different charities during the month of December or for the next while, and you can donate. Wonderful. I have nothing to say about that. I don't want to get too much into, I could criticize her several different ways about the way she's presenting it. But you know what? I don't want to, tell anyone not to give to a charitable organization. However, the fact that let me just play it, but the fact that you have to put giving with Rach on it makes me feel like this is a vanity product or project. And I would prefer to give directly to the organization, not through you, and not have to send my letter, because she's going to ask for like gift cards and letters to give to teens who are experiencing homelessness, to send it to New York City through like a PR person to then hope that it gets to the right hands. I don't know. Something again seems sketchy with this whole thing. She's like pushing it real hard. And to me, it's like, I think there's some ulterior motive going on here.
Let's show up. Let's use.
Oh yeah. And she's using the phrase show up twice in this ad. Let's show up, just like Heidi Powell shows up for her show up conference.
Because this one changes everything. Guys, I have the coolest idea.
So cool.
Let's give back. Let's show up. Let's use this podcast community to do good in the world. Okay. I've decided that I'm going to partner with different organizations that are near and dear to my heart so that we can all join in with a community service project. And for the month of December, I've decided to partner with Covenant House. If you're not already familiar, Covenant House is an organization that provides services and resources and housing and beds and support and kindness and respect to homeless youth. They are an incredible organization that has been around since the 70s, so they have proven themselves time and time again. And I also love them because they're all over North America and have started to open Covenant houses in other places in the world. So no matter where you're listening, you have the ability to show up for the underserved youth in your city. Okay, here's how we're gonna do it this month. We're having a gift card drive.
And she hasn't said, you don't have to donate your own money, but at least Dave was like, I'm going to match donations up to $15,000 or something. I can criticize Dave all day, but I think that is, putting your money where your mouth is. Now, to him, I don't think that that's much money, but, at least he's saying, I'm going to take your donations and then put my own in. I think that's a good thing. Rachel doesn't say that at all. She doesn't say like, I'm going to also give money. She's like, you guys do it through me, through my name, to make me look like a good person. Like, oh, that's nice of you. Thanks, Maddie. Thank you so much. Maddie says, happy holidays, Kia. Your channel and the chat have been a bright part of a bad year for me. Hope everyone has a nice, restful time with their loved ones over the holidays. Aw, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. That is even more than.
It is 18 American dollars.
Can you believe it? This one is also from Dave.
You want to tell Tony to shove it up Tony's ass.
That's true. This is another one for Dave. What is this one? I haven't played this one for a while.
Is this safe for the internet?
Is this safe for the internet?
I am all about getting a free ride.
Me too, Dave. Me too. Thank you, Maddie. And I hope you have a good holiday too. And an even better or a better 2023. It's looking bright. It's looking light. It's looking fun. It's looking like...
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
Sorry you don't have a job in 2022, but the jobs are going to be manifesting in 2023. I know it.
Turns out you can have a full life without putting it all on social media.
Yeah, she's poor now, so she can't give to the organization. She can only give through you. Give through me. Give with Kia. I take all your money and then put my name on it and then give it to the organization so I can feel good about myself. Oh, Lord.
Out to the team at Covenant House, and I was like, okay, I have a bunch of really committed, incredible community members. What could we do to help? And it's gonna make me cry. They said that one of the biggest things that they struggle with this time of year is getting gifts for the homeless youth that they serve. And I was like, okay, me and my girls, we can show up for this. If this December...
That's the third time she's used the phrase show up. I feel like it's on purpose. Thoughts? I'm crying because I'm so grateful to myself.
You have a little extra to give. Would you consider sending a gift card? A gift card works really well because they can give it as a holiday present, but then if they're lucky and they have some left over, they can also use those gift cards so that youth can buy new shoes or get themselves the toiletries that are their favorites. In the show notes are all of the details about where you can send your gift card to. And if you could put it inside of a holiday card, maybe you and the kids make one. Or
this music is like, what is happening? Are we saving the planet from like an asteroid, or are we like, is it the credits rolling of a romantic comedy? Like, what is this?
Buy something cute and you just send a note of encouragement. I'm gonna stop crying, I promise. But it's just like such a little thing that I really think can make a big difference in someone's life. I'm also going to put it on my Instagram so you can easily access that address. But for the month of December, we're sending gift cards in to Covenant House, and I want you to write on that envelope, give with Rach. Hashtag give with Rach is the hashtag we're going to use on social media. And when we send in our gift cards, so we can spread the word, we can get the information out there, and we can see a community of other people like us who are doing their best to show up. I hope you'll join me in this cause. If you don't have the extra financial resources to send, you could still send holiday cards.
I do appreciate this caveat at the end. I think it's important. And I wish more people would talk about like, okay, if you don't have the funds, how can you help in other ways? And I do appreciate that. But again, the give with Rach part is really turning me off. It's like, if you just wanted to use your platform to share a charity that you like, no. Wait, okay. I saw someone say, oh no, I thought we were offline again. I was like very scared. I'm like, okay, we're still live. Woo, okay. But yeah, like if you wanted to use your platform just to share, like, hey, I like the Ronald McDonald House. I think it's a great organization. I would, I just wanted to bring it to your attention to donate this year if you're looking for a charity to give to. Why does it have to be this 3-party system where it's like us girls are going to show up and give gift cards through my name, other than you're trying to prop yourself up through being a generous, donor to, this organization. I'm not shitting on it in the sense of like, what you shouldn't do it, but I just think, why does there have to be your name? Again, like, why does it have to be through you? Why can't you just use your platform to raise awareness and say, I'm going to give money to it? And that's it. I just don't find the need. Like, it's not 1994 anymore where you can't just donate immediately on the website. I'm sure the Covenant House has ways to donate yourself. Like, why do I have to send my message through Rachel Hollis to get it through there? I just find it silly. Thank you, Laura Schreiner. Laura says, I don't have 18 stinking dollars, but I have 18 cents. Finally made alive. Thank you for making me laugh awkwardly to myself at work. It's worse when you laugh to yourself while watching yourself at work. I do that sometimes after the streams are over. I sometimes, honestly, especially with the medical medium episode, I went in and like screenshotted. Did I have it on this page? It might be on my laptop, but I went in and like screenshotted so funny chat, because I read some of the chat. I can't read the whole thing as it's going, and sometimes I miss some of the context. But it was like, one of them was like, to ward off chemtrails, just throw a celery stalk in the sky. I was dying laughing. There's so many funny ones that I really love the chat too, and I wish I could be a part of it more during the lives. But it's just, I think that it's your place to discuss what's going on. So if I can watch it later, I will. But yeah, I'm like laughing at my own stuff. I'm like, okay, this is unhealthy behavior. So thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. And I have to say this about myself.
I happen to be an empath myself.
I'm an empath, guys. I can't help it. Thank you, Laura. And also, since you have an 18, there you go.
18 stinking dollars.
And Bun Mom, thank you. Bun Mom says, thanks for opening my eyes to self-help scams, and your streams are something I look forward to every week. Oklahoma rocks. Oklahoma does rock. We should do a live show in Oklahoma one day. That would be amazing. I don't know what it would look like, but probably just me on stage riffing for 2 hours. Thanks, Bun Mom. This has helped me as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship for sure.
I was the one that needed to get a life.
I was the one who needed to get a life and to get a venting platform, and here we are, helping each other out. Thank you, Bun Mom. I appreciate that. And
I will slowly buy you a boat.
I will slowly buy you a boat. Okay, here we go. So that was, still got a minute left. I don't know what's left of this thing. Let's just play it out.
Or head over to my Instagram on the Covenant House post, and I'm going to put a bunch of different ways that you can volunteer with Covenant House, even virtually. I'm really excited. This is our first community service project, and I hope it's the start of many good things to come. Thank you for being in this work with me and for showing up for others.
Amazing. Okay, so just to see, this is her oops, that's me. If you didn't know, this is her Instagram. So she was on the Dr. Drew show recently. I did not listen to that podcast. Here it is. This is her. Now she's going to show, like, I don't show my children, but then she's got another one with her kids in it. So it's like, all right, you tried. I guess her older kids are now allowed to decide, which, okay, that's better. That's better. At least she's not putting her younger kids' full faces on. Now, I don't think she'll stick to that rule, but, she said she was going to try. So here's the post. So yeah, so you have to send your gift cards with a thing to 5 Penn Plaza, New York. I guess I could show up when when I'm in town. I won't, but I will be nearby there. To Sandra Cardona, whoever that is, give with Rach. So this is like so sketchy to me. Why am I sending my cards to Penn Plaza? Is Covenant House based there, or is your company that somehow is like a crisis PR firm that makes celebrities look better based in New York? I just wonder about that. And then, okay, some people are saying that she got a lot of Iran posts, no matter what, on anything she does. Like, it's just, hey, what's going on in Iran? But not that many comments, like very little. She's got one, like, oh, okay, this is the person she had on the podcast recently, said, done. Okay, she's going to do it. Something about Iran. This is a good cause. Okay, seems like a real person. The rest seems to be like spam. So, I don't know. Oh, I guess that's a real one. Okay, there's more. But, I don't know. She's got like over 1 million followers. I feel like 3,000 is not that much. But whatever. I should stop being nitpicky. Just pick the big things. And now we're going to go back in time. Oh, yeah. Oh, this one. This is just a side note. This is a small segment. That's not even a segment, but just something I wanted to show really quickly since I haven't been on talking about her in a little bit. But first, Brits Kicks, I like that name, says, I randomly say clear sometimes. You are inspiring how you can look back on your childhood with clarity. Dave sounds like Dan Harris. Yes, Dan Harris. I read Dan Harris's book. I need to revisit him. I think he's a decent person, I guess. He's got a career outside of self-help, but he wrote a book called 10% Happier. And I read it when I was very into self-help. And I remember thinking like, good book, but I would like to revisit it and see if it is at all problematic. I'm not sure. This one's for you, Brits Kicks, a Dave voice. And let's pick this one.
Disneyland dad?
He's a Disneyland dad.
Dave, you're talking about peace, aren't you? No, I'm talking about buying my book.
That is an underrated soundbite, actually. Thanks, Brits Kicks. Okay. All right. So here's this is just like I said, not related to is she broke, sob story. But this is from 1 week ago. It says, shout out to everyone who keeps going to therapy. Good. Keeps taking their meds. Wonderful. However, she says that, other people need to take their meds, not her. But okay. Keeps attending meetings. Okay, good. Keeps doing whatever they need to get healthy. Wonderful message. It's hard fucking work and good for you for fighting for yourself. Okay, have nothing wrong with that caption. Now, this post though, I'm like, what is this? Okay, you know that scene in movies when the main character sees their ex and they just happen to look fabulous and they're with a new man and it's the ultimate? Okay, I think that's Rachel Hollis's dream. That's how she's created her entire scenario post-divorce. This is what she's been waiting for to happen. Probably hasn't happened yet. So now she's going to create this other scenario in which it can happen in her mind. Well, I just ran into my old therapist and the last time I saw him, I think it's interesting that she's got a he as a therapist just because everyone that she hires in her life, her coach, her mentor, John Maxwell, man, therapist, man, DJ, man, videographer, man. What else? There's other things too. The only one that she allows as a female is a woman as a energy healer. She allows the woman for that, but everything else needs to be a man. Well, okay, and the last time I saw him, I was sobbing on his couch during the hardest season of my life. I gave him a big hug, and when he asked me how I was able to tell him truthfully that I am so, so good. And y'all, getting an epilogue with your old therapist where you can tell they're proud of you, that just hits different. What? First of all, I'm pretty sure there's a rule where if your therapist sees you in person first, they are obligated not to say anything to you and act like they don't know you because it's up to you as a patient to engage. Now they can engage back, but I don't think they're supposed to approach you in any way. I don't feel comfortable giving my therapist a hug personally. Now maybe I have issues, but I would not in public, especially like, girl, what's up? Like this person is a professional, healthcare provider for me. I don't need to pretend like there's some sort of like friendship going. We have a connection and a relationship, but not I'm going to hug you. And I don't think that my therapist is thinking like, oh, wow, she really got good at, life now. She's won the game of therapy. She doesn't need me anymore. And then they walk away into the sunset and laugh and laugh. It's like, if that's what you think therapy is about, and if you think like you need to prove to your therapist that you're a good person, you're probably not actually telling them the truth. And also, if you were crying on the couch last time I saw him, wouldn't you go back for a follow-up before like seeing him in the street and be like, I've healed myself? I don't know. A lot of this is just odd. And like to share it out as a message of like, this is what everyone should be like, isn't this a global story that everyone relates to or how great I am doing? It's just like, ugh, I don't know. So this is... Okay, and then the first comment, okay, I just happened to look at it right now. My therapist, this is a comment. My therapist just told my husband and I at our last session that our journey is the one she's been most proud to be a part of, and it's the most encouraging thing. Bizarre. If this is going on with your therapist, I think you should seek another therapist, honestly. If they're telling you you're the best patient I have, that's weird. I'm sorry. I think that's wrong. I don't know. And then someone's like, I'm a year into therapy, first timer, and I just started seeing my third therapist. Is that normal? I get it. Therapists have their own lives as well. Got to do what's best for them. But man, I hate repeating my story from the beginning. Okay, I don't know, like they canceled on them? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And then someone said, interesting, I would never hug my therapist. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. So that's just a side little thing of what's a slice of life in Rachel Hollis's life. So she's won, guys. She's won the battle against life. She's won. She's on top once again. Just in case you didn't know, check her Instagram. Yikes. Okay, so now we're going to listen to the Rise Together podcast, episode 54, the importance of being financially aligned as a couple. Now, again, this is old, so this is not obviously because they're divorced at this point, but this is 2019 July. And we're going to learn all about how being financially aligned as a couple is so important and that you should be like Dave and Rachel, but don't look that a year later, basically, oops, Zelda, Zelda is still swimming around. That's the update. I'm sure that they're going to say, and I have not listened to this, I'm sure they're going to say, like, this is the key to our happiness and do what we do to be like us because we're the best. So here we go. Like 1 year later, they're divorced. There you go. Yeah, I like that soundbite too. I saw it come through.
This girl a mess, y'all.
Kendra said it best. Okay, here we go. The importance of being financially aligned as a couple.
Hi guys, it's Rachel, and this is a quick word.
Oh wait, I didn't click the right button.
Okay, the kids are already asking what's for dinner.
Oh,
but
God.
gluten-free additional terms.
For the two-part finale.
Ugh, we're already 50 seconds in. I'm skipping ahead, and we're ads. I didn't know they had ads back then.
Today we're talking about finances.
Oh, money.
And
Oh, Lord.
being in Hawaii for 16 days is possible because of finances.
Oh, that's real.
And so we thought that
Oh, I haven't heard a duo podcast in a long time. I'm already triggered. Being in Hawaii is possible because of finances. Oh, true. Oh my God. He's going to just like repeat the last sentence of everything she says. Okay, I'm ready. Buckle up. Ready.
share some of our thoughts on what it means to be aligned financially as a couple, which is so important.
If you were to think of, like, what are the reasons why human beings who are in relationship fight? If we were at the Family Feud and, like, it was Richard Dawson,
Yes.
or it was
Or Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey's now doing it.
Money.
Huh?
Ding.
Yeah.
It would be the number one answer on the board.
Number one answer.
And then we would say player pass, and I would probably pass because after money, I don't know what people fight about.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do.
We've
I could
covered
think of some
we've covered
things.
them in every episode. I'd play.
What did you guys just say? You know that Steve Harvey's doing the bing, 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 bing. Yeah, right? To your money. Cool. Got it. Awesome. Play intro music. I'm unsure of what this podcast is going to be about.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hollis.
And I'm Dave Hollis.
And we're married.
For like 15 years.
And
This is their intro. I've never heard this intro. Oh my God. This is like blowing my mind. Hi, we're married. No longer. For like 15 years. They didn't even make it to 12, I thought. I thought it was like they actually were together for 12, but married for like 10 or something. What was the actual numbers? I forget, but like 15 years, I think they were rounding up there. Here we go.
4 kids.
That's like 1,000 kids.
We've been foster parents to 4 kids as well.
And we're running a business together.
That's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things.
But we know that it's possible to have an exceptional relationship regardless of the stresses you have in your life.
So if you want some tips and tricks on how we get through all the things,
This is Rise Together.
Damn, can't write this. The foreshadowing is incredible. There needs to be, I'm sure Rachel Hollis has written the movie. I've already made that joke before, that if Rachel ever, she says she's written a screenplay, and I'm sure that it's Rachel Hollis, the movie, Rachel Hollis, the Rachel Hollis story, the story of Rachel Hollis. Like, that's all she writes, because even her fiction books are about her as well. So, and her life, loosely based on her life as a young country bumpkin coming to LA. So I don't know. I don't know what I was saying about that, but it's just interesting that this is their whole monologue. It's like none of it's true, and it led to a contentious divorce. Who would have thunk? It's a long intro.
It was the number one fight my parents had was money. It's such a memory for me of my childhood, is them fighting
Can't
over
relate.
where the money was, how we were going to find money for things, what we could or couldn't afford. Like it was such a part of why they struggled so much.
You know what's interesting? I can remember, because I also grew up in a family with few means.
What?
My parents had 4 kids in like...
This is the first time I ever heard Dave say that. Few means. Does he mean like a few lake houses or what? Like, this is news to me that Dave grew up in a household with few means. His dad owned like a construction company, from what I remember. Please enlighten me, Dave.
6 years. They were crazy people. And my dad was a construction worker, contractor. My mom stayed at home, hardest job in the world. And they just didn't have a lot of money. And so any conversation about money that was had in front of us kids was a catalyst for anxiety for me. Like, I really, really got...
well, your mom has anxiety about money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Like, my parents...
Rachel hates Dave's mom.
were raised by parents who themselves were products of a like childhood that had them just coming out of a depression. They like lived through world wars. That like they had a harder life, and they came out of a financial environment that had less certainty, and so they were the products of the uncertainty of their parents, my grandparents, showing up in the way that they...
It's so interesting because I would guess...
Let him finish his thought, Rachel. He did not finish his sentence there.
That, at least on my dad's side, I come from much poorer people than you come from. But I don't have, like...
She's like, hold up, bro. You're not going to steal my spotlight. I'm being the poor one of this couple, okay? I had a poorer family. Okay, that's nice. Let's go back just a second.
Up in the way that
it's so interesting because I would guess that, at least on my dad's side, I come from much poorer people than you come from. But I don't have, like, I don't think that my dad's family or my dad, like, they didn't have anxiety about it. It's just, I'm just processing this in real time. I think that there was a lot of fear. The psychology of your family was fear about money, and the psychology of my family, I think, would be a bit more about, my gut says, like, scarcity. Like there's not enough, or if someone else has it, then that means that I can't have it too.
Interesting.
Like I would almost think that they would teeter more towards like anger at other people who had than fear that we didn't have enough.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
And
Totally
I say
different
that
mindset.
because I think that for listeners, the first and most important question you can ask when it comes to finances is, what did I learn, either consciously or unconsciously, from my family of origin as it pertains to money?
That's such a good question to ask. So many of the things that I have done as an adult, both before I met you, once I met you, once we had kids, are in some ways, and most of them on an unconscious, subconscious level, a reflection of my family of origin.
I remember when we bought...
They act like this is like revolutionary information or deserves to be in a podcast. Did you know that your adulthood is affected by your childhood? Did you know that the way that you look at the world comes from your perspective? What interesting. Oh my God, I never thought about that. Like, are you being for real? Or are you just playing it up for the podcast? Because this seems like, yeah, no shit. No duh. So you're going to give us any more tips or what?
A house, like our third house. That sounds not like we own 3 houses at once, but over the course of our lives, we were buying a home. How fearful your mom was about us buying a home. And I remember thinking, like, totally from a place of love on her part, but she was like so afraid for us. And I'm like, you don't know our like, why would you be afraid? Which, by the way, we were great. We would not overextend ourselves. We could afford the house, but she was so fearful. It was kind of the first time that I had that like click, like, oh man, this is such a narrative for you guys.
Oh man, like so much of what drove my like wanting to have a like when I got the opportunity at the Walt Disney Company to have a contract where they wanted to guarantee that they would keep me. I did not see that so much through any other lens than I have the promise of what ended up being 4 years of time that they were saying, I'm going to make sure every 2 weeks a paycheck comes into your bank account.
It's so funny. I'm like, I'm smiling because my psychology is I hate the idea of a contract. I hate being locked in. You know this about me. You can think of all these business situations right now where I hate the idea that you have made a plan or done something that you are now stuck in because you took money from someone.
Oh yeah. Here's a
Oh, like the millions of dollars that you allegedly owe all your vendors? Like that type of contract? Interesting. That this is the time frame in which she would have signed those contracts where she owed things for next year. Okay.
I mean, this is a little off topic, but just to explain the psychology of when that first contract expired and it was time to sign a second contract, I still had that same kind of certainty mentality and knowing for sure that I was going to have the ability to provide for our family was like so what I thought soul, my body, my everything needed. When the third contract came up, it was a catalyst for a massive midlife crisis meltdown because that
continues to this day. Again, this is like how did people love her so much before? I mean, I was never a huge super fan deep into the trenches of the Rise Together podcast, so I didn't listen to a lot of these conversations. But again, like, oh, well, the first two contracts of probably at least 6 figures, if not 7 figures with the Walt Disney Company, those were whatever. I was still fearful of my financial future. But the third one, I was like, I guess it's time for a midlife crisis. Like, it's almost the opposite of what she's saying in her time frame now. It's like these are all things that are sort of being presented as like challenges for them. But in reality, these are like the biggest privileges in the entire world and should be very grateful for them to have a house. Who cares what your mother-in-law thinks about it? The fact that you have a house at all is a huge accomplishment, and you should be sort of fearful about it. That is a huge investment. And the fact that she's like nonchalant, like laissez-faire about it, it's like, okay, well, that's a privilege in itself to not be that worried about buying a home. And then secondly, getting these contracts with money coming into your, like, what do you think a job is? Having a contract is more of a guarantee that you're going to be paid and most likely not like let go, like a lot of the American workforce is always fearful of. At least in Florida, you can be let go at any time. Even if you have a contract, you can be let go whenever for whatever reason. And it's like, you always have to be on your toes to make sure you have something else, down the pipeline, like you have to be. So again, like who is relating to this story at all?
Driven my entire life because of the influence of my family of origin, this thing, certainty, instead of being a thing that I could rest easy in and take comfort from, felt like shackles. And the signing of that third deal was a thing that began
bad word choice.
The end of me working at the company because I realized, oh my goodness, I have to get out of here.
And both contracts 2 and 3, I argued against.
Yeah.
And it did not go well for me.
So the thing is, you were arguing against a thing that existed in my being for 38 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like I had so much muscle memory for that certainty of knowing that the guarantee of that paycheck was going to be there.
Yeah.
That the idea of not having it guaranteed was a thing that you had as much or more certainty in our ability to find a way to make money.
Well, I think this isn't necessarily financial, but this is definitely a like capital T truth for me. I want to live or die by my own sword.
Yeah.
You know that expression? Like
You died. Flash forward.
Do not trust a lot of people. This sounds like a therapy session.
Bring it.
Okay, she does not trust a lot of people. Yet in the podcast that she did recently, this is just gotta call it out when I see it moment. I don't trust a lot of people, she says, in 2019. But then in 2020, she goes, things I changed about myself, one of them being, I'm too trusting. I trust authority way too much. I trust anybody. Okay, here's that one. We don't have to watch it, but, oops, Zelda, still swimming in the Keys somewhere. Chapters. I trust authority when I shouldn't. Now, that sounds like the opposite of what she's saying 2 years before that. I trust no one. See, that's me. That's my issue in life. I don't trust enough. And I get, I'm lonely because of it. So call me, girl. We can have a chat about that.
Particularly as it pertains to business. I don't mean like our team. Our team's incredible. But I don't trust partners. I don't trust... I do not have good... In fact, when we do partner with someone and they actually keep their word and are good... Like I think of Fathom. We released a movie last summer with Fathom. Fathom was an incredible partner to us.
So good, yeah.
And it was one of the first times I was like, this is what it's like when someone works with integrity and does what they say they're going to do and cares about the quality of their... So I hesitate to go into contract, to do anything where someone like gives you money in advance and then it makes me feel twitchy.
Here's the thing.
Follow your gut. Follow your instinct, Rachel. Old Rachel from 2019. You should have followed your gut. You wouldn't be in the situation you're in now, maybe. This sounds weird.
Recognizing is like, there's a little bit of this, like, what are your intentions here? ? And the reality is, everyone who wants to be in relationship with you financially has intentions that are not necessarily in your best interest.
Yeah.
They're in their best interest.
Totally.
And so as this business continues to grow, there are more partners that have more interests that, by the way, sometimes align with, but usually have business terms that are written originally, if they're coming from them to us, in their best interest, not ours.
Well, and my thing is,
Yeah. Okay. And you think like we should like worship you and go, okay, I'm going to just work for free because I have the honor and opportunity to be in the presence of Dave, the poorest poor son of a construction company owner, and Rachel, the only hippie Hollis. I'll just do anything to be there. I'll, wash their feet every night. Like, of course you're going to sign a contract or put a contract together that like is beneficial to you.
I think I struggle with it so much because I work so hard and I am, I'm in competition with myself. I am hardest on myself. And so I can't stand it when people in business when they don't try.
You know what's
when
interesting
they mail
is
it in.
You have such it's like justice. Principle. Whatever the word is, it's like you're like, I do this much. I put in this much effort and I'm taking out this little amount, and you put in this very small amount of effort and you're taking out this much bigger amount. There's no justice in that.
See,
and
the entire publishing industry.
You want to fight City Hall every day on justice.
And I will.
What's amazing, honestly, and this is great because as a person, again, who's been...
And I will. Okay, go back to that, Rachel. What about the publishing company? What about that? The entire publishing industry? Please give us the tea on that, because I'm unaware of you being disappointed by your publishing profits.
More fixed mindset oriented in my lifetime. I've tended to take on face value, this is the way that things are done.
Yeah.
This is the way that business is done. This is the way that things are done. And the beauty of our partnership in this business is Rachel does not care how anything has ever been done.
No.
Period.
It's 2019.
Like, things are moving too fast, and just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it has to be. Look, here's what I believe. I was just thinking about this morning. I'm trying to think of the setting. Oh, about what I wear on stage.
Oh,
okay,
geez.
we're taking a whole
Oh,
side.
geez.
So this is a whole sidebar, but bear with me for a second. When you are starting in an industry, when you're coming up in the world, you have to play by other people's rules. That's what I tell my kids this all the time. Like, they'll say, "Oh, my teacher doesn't let me," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're in her domain. When you're in her domain, you play by her rules. Maybe last year's teacher didn't care if you just shouted out an answer, but this year's teacher wants you to raise your hand, and you're in her classroom, so you play by her rules, you raise your hand." When I was coming up as a speaker, you know, you had to play by certain rules. You had to do things. And something that pops up every once in a while makes my head
What things, Rachel? Give an example so we're not left hanging or creating our own scenarios. What did you have to do to get on these stages? Please tell us.
My blood boil.
Settle down.
Is people will try to sneak into contracts or say to me as we're doing prep calls for me to go do a keynote speech for someone, what I'm supposed to wear. I mean, I had a call this morning and I was shaking. I was so pissed. A freaking man.
Always got to be a man trying to mansplain what a woman needs to wear.
Tried to tell me what I was supposed to wear on stage. And I said, I have been dressing myself for 34 years. And what I would ask you right now is if you ever tell your male keynote speakers what they are supposed to wear.
Hello.
I don't get paid because of wearing business casual. I get paid because people came to your events because they saw my name on the marquee. Number one, I get paid because...
Oh, Lord, she had a lot of confidence back then, and I'll call it confidence and not complete delusion. I mean, they're paying you $100,000 allegedly. I think they should be able to tell you, hey, this is a business conference. Don't wear your fucking bicycle shorts like she does at her own conferences. That's just me. And, you know, I think, I don't know if it's a gendered thing. She likes to take it that way a lot. Like, oh, you never tell a man that. It's like, maybe they do. Maybe they say, hey, everyone who's speaking is, you know, wearing business casual. I don't know. Doesn't she have a stylist too? Like, why don't you say, okay, let me talk to my stylist. And what's the point of having the stylist if she dresses herself? Like, I'm confused about that too. She just had a bloated ego back then. And you know, it's nice to revisit this sometimes because sometimes I have some sympathy. I'm like, ooh, this is a woman who's like struggling and it's obvious, and like seeing her video view counts and stuff, I'm just like, yikes. But now hearing this side again, I'm like, yeah, you know what? No, I am justified in not liking her and being sort of happy about the downfall. Because when you put yourself on this pedestal, on this mountaintop, and then you slip off, I don't know. There's something satisfying about it. Yikes.
If people are sitting in that audience, they will leave here inspired and motivated and ready to take. That's why I get paid. But I'm going to do that work in jeans. Because I did that work for a decade in a awful colored pantsuit. Because I had to play by your rules.
It wasn't very well fitting, I'll be honest.
No. But now, that's not the case. And I
screaming.
think this with partnerships in business. Back in the day, I had to, thank you, sir, may I have another?
Yeah.
I had to take whatever. But if there are, not everything, if we moved into a new industry, we tried something new, I'm going to be the new kid and I'm going to have to play by their rules. But but publishing? No, I get to make a whole new set of rules over the next.
Yeah, good point, Joms. In one of the episodes when Rachel was talking about, like, you know, in her company, which at the time when she was speaking about it no longer existed. She didn't mention that little tidbit. She like was living in the past about when she did have 60 employees and what she would tell them to wear. She required her employees to wear brunch outfits, whatever that means. So trendy, casual, or not casual, trendy, like outfits that you would want to wear with a group of girlfriends out at the, you know, brunch table or whatever. It was very sort of odd, but she had a dress code. But I guess what she's saying here is, well, you're just subordinate losers. I'm the leader of this company. I can wear jeans, but you guys have to wear what I say because I'm in charge. And that lasted for 1 year. And now they all work remotely and can probably wear whatever they want.
5 years, you just watch.
By the way, you didn't get to make those rules for the first 7 books that came out. The self-published books, the cookbooks, you had to play by other rules.
100%.
And now you're going to play by different rules.
Yes.
And I'm here for it.
Yes.
But I think the bottom line is,
but we were talking about being locked in because of finances. I hate the idea of someone else being able to control me financially because it just feels like you're trapped. And by the way, what's very interesting about this is this same reason that I love the idea of living debt free is if you sign under contract with someone, you get a mortgage on a house, you lease a car, whatever, like you are locked into a contract. You don't know what is going to happen to your life next month. You don't know what's going to happen to the economy next year, but you are locked into something. You do not have control of that scenario.
Okay, girlfriend, you seem to be self-aware here. What happened? What went wrong? Everything you're saying here, I don't like contracts. I don't want to be locked in. I don't want to have, you never know what can happen next year. Okay, so what happened? Who screwed you over? Because you're saying, I guess she's saying that these contracts were signed by people who were not her. So none of the debt payback was her fault. Maybe she's right. I mean, I don't know. I hate to give her any credit, but maybe she is right because it doesn't seem like she would. And I mean, she contradicts herself every 5 seconds. So maybe she's just one of those other things where I hate this, but then does the exact opposite. Who knows? Thank you, Mai. Mai says, good morning / afternoon, Killa. Just got here. Quick rundown of what is happening. Oh my. You have so much to catch up on. No, we listened to Rachel's podcast that came out this week, and she said that she was in millions of dollars of debt and that she is just putting one foot in front of the other and working so hard to pay it back because she's a good person. And now we're going back to 2019 to hear how she thought about finances pre-pandemic, pre-divorce, pre-Toiletgate to see if there's a big contradiction there. And so far it seems like yes. That's all that we've covered basically. So this is what I have to say about Rachel Hollis.
You're not freaking fine.
You're not freaking fine. And this is for Mai, okay?
You have to think instead of sitting around eating Skittles and watching Oprah reruns.
Right? Come on, guys. She's dressed herself since 1949. Thank you, Mai. I appreciate it. Excuse me.
Decision that we made to live debt free, to do all of the things that we do in our relationship without having to be beholden to a lien holder or a mortgage company.
Okay, sorry. Shut the fuck up, okay? Yeah, as if that's the choice that everyone's making, debt free or full of debt? I'm going to choose debt free to buy this new car. As if this is an option for 99% of everybody. Like, okay, Dave Ramsey, thank you so much. Like, I'm glad that you think that credit cards are evil, but I need to pay my, food bill this month and I don't have the money because I'm working at a job that doesn't pay me because I switched jobs or something or whatever. Like, these people are idiotic. Yeah, this is they're so smart to choose to be debt free. Okay.
You do not have control of that scenario.
This decision that we made to live debt free,
live debt free,
all of the things that we do in our relationship.
They also live in a giant mansion in Dripping Springs, Texas during this podcast. We choose to live debt free. Yeah. What sacrifice would you make that you're going to live in Texas versus LA? Oh, what a sacrifice. Thanks so much. We can all relate and learn from this.
Having to be beholden to a lien holder or a mortgage company or Toyota USA Inc. or whatever.
Thank you for the Sienna. I said thank you. They didn't give us one.
Yeah.
I want to clarify.
Yeah.
We paid
we
full money.
just gave them money for it.
Yes, sorry.
But no, that decision, like the ability to, man, I'm stinking grateful for, but that decision to do that for a person in me who spent the majority of my life with anxiety about just money or certainty, like taking that off the table has lifted such an awesome burden off of my back. Gosh, I love it so much.
Well, think of how many decisions we had to make. And by the way, we have not always been debt free. And what's crazy is that we had so many years where Dave had this incredible job that had an incredible salary, and we didn't live debt free.
Yeah.
Because we were in LA, we were keeping up with the Joneses. It was all about appearances. It was all about what other people thought, which if you go back in time and look at it, how many years you spent locked into that job to keep us in the lifestyle that we had.
Oh, yeah. Just to be clear, we've been married for now 15 years. We've been debt-free for one of the 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
because you were living like a lavish lifestyle. That's still not applicable to most of America. Most people are in debt because they're surviving, not because they're, living in mansions and going to Hollywood parties. Get a clue, idiots. I mean, I guess they did, or they didn't, but they separated at least. So get a clue separately now.
Always carried debt, and we've been able to, over the course of time, get closer and closer and closer to not carrying debt.
Yeah.
But as a thing to
knew
aspire for, or a thing to, Dave Ramsey's got a ton of really, really
so
great
much
tools that
information.
can help. If this is a thing for you that you think, man, what would it mean for my relationship?
How many fucking restaurants did you work at, Dave Hollis? How many restaurants did you work at, Rachel Hollis? Come on, give me a break.
Nothing.
This is what Dave Ramsey would say to you keeping up with the Joneses.
Somebody ought to smack you.
Live debt free? Well, you can wonder about it, or you could think it would be great, but if you don't create a plan to get you closer to that thing, we had to build a plan.
Yeah.
And we had to build a plan that took every single one of the things that we owed money on and got us step by step closer to not having it as a thing that could be held over our heads
and
anymore.
how many years? Probably 2 years. I tried to convince you to do this.
Yeah.
And you were like, that's not, it doesn't matter. It's not.
I don't know what she means exactly, but I think I should just play it honestly. But I think because she said, like, I argued against the 2 contracts that she signed. So she was trying to get Dave to come on board to the company 2 years ago. But then she makes it seem like it was the worst decision ever, and he was the one who tanked the company, and that he was the one who came in and is like an asshole and wanted to be CEO and all that. I called that into question a while ago, whether she was the one who wanted him to be CEO the whole time, but wanted to create this narrative that, like, oh, I'm just a poor girl who, just has to fight against the patriarchy all the time, including with my own husband. I don't know for sure. Who's to say? But it just seems like she wanted him to leave Disney. For what reason, I don't really understand. I guess it's to, like, not, because she felt like she had to hire somebody to do some of the work that Dave ended up doing, and she'd rather have it stay in the family. I think that's the real reason. She wanted to keep the money in her orbit as opposed to someone she can't control.
It's fine. It's was there a reason that you can, in retrospect, remember why you pushed back on it so much? Because basically, I've had the opportunity to become friends with quite a few people who work at Ramsey. So Christy Wright's a dear friend, and Rachel Cruz. And so I would go hang out with them. Well, this is very funny. If you guys know the Ramsey organization and all their, how...
I don't think she would be accepted back there any longer. She has denounced Christianity one too many times and called God a woman. So I don't think Rachel Hollis and Rachel Cruz are besties anymore. I have a feeling.
Intentional they are about using cash only and not using credit, whatever. There is nothing more awkward in the whole world than the first time I went to dinner with Christy and Rachel, and the bill comes, and we're like, oh, the waitress, so you guys want to split it? Yeah, we'll split it 3 ways. And I throw down my MasterCard, and Rachel and Christy both put down debit cards. And it is a very awkward moment. And they don't say anything, but I felt so awkward, like, oh,
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, because everyone can tell just based on your credit card which is a debit and which is a credit. Yeah, that's a real story, Rachel. Cool.
Awkward.
Well, the psychology for me was the sacrifices that you have to make to get to the point of being debt-free felt like they'd come at the expense of the life I wanted us to have in the short term.
Yeah.
And so I do like the idea of being able to go on vacation. I do like the idea of being able to live at the time in a decent place in Los Angeles where property is
So
just
expensive.
crazy expensive. I did like the idea of being able to have like a disposable entertainment budget so that we could go out and do the stuff we wanted to do. And so like in my mind, it was like, you know what? I don't want to have that short-term thing compromise what it means for us to have fun or enjoy our life. What I, of course, end up finding out, like most of the limiting beliefs that I have that end up being proven otherwise, when we made choices like, hey, let's find a place where we can live that costs less.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. This is a huge thing. If you're like, how did you do that? So I think I've talked about it before, but our friends Tom and Lisa have this saying that I love.
Oh yeah, Tom and Lisa, the multimillionaires. Tell me what they sacrificed to get where they are, please. Lisa was a stay-at-home wife. She could have got a job, for 10 years and chose not to. Tell me what she sacrificed in the process of making millions of dollars, please. I can't wait.
Tom and Lisa Bilyeu will challenge each other. Like if one of them is like dreaming and they're like, oh, I want to do this. I want this or that or the other thing. Their challenge is, okay, no BS. What would it actually take?
Yeah.
What would it take for you? So for us, like what would it take for you? This were the questions we were asking ourselves 18 months, 2 years ago. What would it take for us to scale this business? I have this business at the time, had 6 or 7 employees in Los Angeles. Things were starting to really work, really felt like we were building something. But in order to grow it the way we wanted to, I knew we needed to scale. But I couldn't afford that in LA. And so we started to ask ourselves the question like, okay, what would this take? Well, it would take a lower cost of living.
Yeah.
It would take, like getting debt free, it would take us selling our very expensive home in LA and using that to pay.
No, not the house in LA. That's very expensive. Oh. Sorry for screaming. What would it take? We have to sell the Bugatti? The boat? Not the jet skis. No, not the jet skis. Shut up.
Debt. Using that, going and buying a house, not even in Austin, out in the country.
In the sticks.
Not even in Austin, a place where people have heard of. Dripping Springs, where the sprawling acreage, and we're gonna have to put our own gym in a warehouse in the property with a go-kart track. Who are we, peasants? Yeah, I'm glad that Rachel Hollis fucked up her life and is failing as a businesswoman. I'm sorry, I know that's mean and not right to say, but this makes me feel so good to hear this now and to see what happened after this. She's still a millionaire, so okay, boo-hoo, cry me a river again about your financial situation. But yeah, this is what happens when you get so bloated in your ego that you can't even see what you're saying here.
Buying a house that we could pay cash for that was so much less expensive, like beyond less expensive than LA.
Okay, while we do this, I'm going to look up what they bought it for.
It would mean giving up that lifestyle. It would mean giving up the fancy, Audi. It would, like all of these things, it would mean giving up this stuff so that we could have the life we say we want. So
do they really think this is a sacrifice? Do they really think trading in an Audi for a Toyota Sienna is a sacrifice? Do you think an LA mansion for a Texas mansion is a sacrifice? Do you really think that? Is there people in this world that think that that's real? Because I can't. I just cannot comprehend.
The way, like when you're like theoretically processing the trade-off, part of your brain, because of like comfort zone being a thing that you're familiar with, or the narrative that you've been living inside of, the idea of uprooting our family and moving it to another state felt like a lot to have to agree to try and actually deliver on this opportunity to live debt free and opportunity to scale our business. The headline though ends up being, we like where we live. on a factor of 10 times more than
beyond.
where we lived before.
Beyond.
The experience of moving to Texas, it's been a little more than a year, has been unbelievably wonderful for our family in a way that when we were first talking about it and it felt scary because different is scary, it's been such an amazing blessing that also, by the way, has allowed us to live debt free and also, by the way, allowed us to scale the company.
Well, so this is what's interesting about.
Wow, amazing. You want to learn how to be debt free? Just sell your Audi. Advice from a rich man who grew up really poor. See, now when they're like, I was really poor as a kid, what does that mean? You only had like 3 cars for the family. You only went to, vacation in Europe a couple times a year. Like, what is your please define what being poor as a child is, because I have high doubts that they were poor. I think they went to a nice school and one of the other kids at school had more than them. So they're like, I'm disadvantaged. Because their idea of giving up and sacrifice and privilege is warped as hell. Dave bots. Here we are. Ban. Thank you.
Idea. You can ask yourself as a couple or as an individual, whatever dream, whatever goal, you've got your Start Today journal, you're writing down this vision you have of your life. What would it take? What would it actually take? Now, here's the question most people don't ask. What am I willing to do?
Yeah.
So you've got the list of people like, well, what would it take? Okay, great. Now you know what it would take, but what are you willing, like, what are you going to have to give up? Okay, what are you willing to give up? Because lots of people can figure out the first part, but aren't willing to do the second part, which is soul searching and truly identifying, okay, do you really want a different life, or do you just say you want a different life? Because if you really want a different life, here's the path, but you have to be willing to do it.
Some of it too is like taking a step back to be able to actually take 3 steps forward once you've accomplished a thing. So like it might be going back to school. It might be getting the training that you need. It might. Okay,
I'm not going to show it because, whatever. But on Zillow, the house currently is the Zestimate, which, is not necessarily accurate all the time. But right now, the home that Dave lives in currently and that they're talking about now, that they had to sacrifice to make a huge sacrifice, that they bought in cash, is now worth $1.6 million. So, sad. Sad day for these just down and out couple trying to make it in this world. Had to really look at their self and go, what would it take here? What can we give? A lot of people sacrifice having children. That's a big conversation that we have right now in the United States. Like, can millennials or, even Gen Z coming up afford to have kids? A lot of families can't. A lot of, young couples are barely affording their, pay back their tuition and buy a home. Like, none of these things are possible for us in our generation. I'm a millennial. So it's like sacrificing having a family. That sounds like a sacrifice based on finances that is worth having a discussion about. Giving up your Audi or selling $1 million property for another, it's so, I can't even, again, I'm going to stop bringing this up again, but I just cannot believe that these people have an audience, have anyone that would pay them money at this point in life, and even back then, to listen to a goddamn word they had to say. Ridiculous.
Be moving in with your parents
for a season.
Because you've got to pay down your student loan.
It might be taking a free internship and having to really struggle for a second so that the experience. Dave, shut the fuck up. Oh, take an internship that's unpaid? That's also a privilege, you dumb fuck. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm going to shut up. Let me just play it. Sorry. It might be going back to school. It might be getting the training that you need. It might be
moving in with your
parents for a season.
Because you've got to pay down your student loan.
It might be taking a free internship and having to really struggle for a second so that the experience you get makes you a candidate to get that great job that you actually want 6 months later when you actually, have the experience.
Yeah, and maybe, dude, by the way, maybe you look at the list, this is what it would really take, and you're like, nah.
Many of us are already planning our New Year's resolutions to work out more in 2020.
the ads. Get a little jingle, please.
Before
Stop making me excuses that you don't know.
Peloton.com.
Peloton.
All access membership separate. Offer ends December 25th. Cannot be combined with other offers. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.
I don't want that.
This is post Rise Together conference. This is post, because that happened in 2018 was the marriage conference. So this is after the fact. Yes.
But at least own that. At least stop making me excuses that you don't know how or you don't have the resources. No. You know the path. You're choosing not to do it. This is the thing about anybody who sets out on a journey to make change, particularly as it comes to finances.
Blame yourself, baby. It's all individual choice. Nothing to do with, systems in play that keep people poor and keep rich people rich. Definitely not. It's all you. You just didn't leave your LA mansion. Have you tried leaving your LA mansion? Get a better job, I guess. Like, you work at McDonald's and you're not making enough to afford any apartment in the United States. Have you tried selling your Audi? Come on. It's your choice.
And I swear this is not an ad for Ramsey, but Ramsey will say this all the time. Like, you have to be willing to live your life in a way that most people won't, so you can eventually live a life that most people can't.
I love that line.
Most people can't relate to. She was workshopping Toiletgate for so long. Oh, I know it. That was like this exact verbiage, the exact wording. Most people won't do the things that it requires to live a life that most people can't relate to. Okay, that's like intermixing both of what she said and what she said in Toiletgate, but same sentiment.
One of the things, though, that we've talked about is this idea of like, what do you value in your relationship? And if you are currently in a relationship where your financial values are not aligned, you are going to have so many problems.
Yeah.
So like, it's one thing to say like, what is it going to take and where are you going to go? But first you have to be aligned on where it is that you actually want to go in your relationship financially. Because if one of you thinks, I want to save some money to actually afford a vacation, and one of you thinks, I want to save some money to actually afford this house, one of you is going to be super upset because you may not ever be able to afford both. Getting on that same page, understanding what the goal is, and then how you're going to organize your life and the things you have to do to get from where you are to where you want to go is super, super important. So start with that conversation. We have a conversation about the things that are important to us, including a future version of our life where we get to come back to Hawaii in a place that we actually own.
Yeah.
We're dreaming super big for the things we want in the future. It's going to take God only knows how long to actually get from where we are to where we want to be, but we are aligned on.
Well, you can plan and plan, but in 6 months you'll be divorced anyways. So I guess your plans sometimes don't work out in the world of the Hollises. Wah, wah, wah. Don't feel bad for us. I don't. Don't worry about it. I hate you guys.
Unfollow me.
Thanks, Dave.
Thing that we're chasing.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because we have different approaches or different like desires as it pertains to how we spend our money. Like in a lot of ways we're very similar, but even like coming on this vacation, Hawaii is my special place. You're like, well, we could go to Cancun and it's a, hour and 45-minute flight and it's less expensive. And, to get to Hawaii, we got to fly 8 hours with a 2-year-old and all of these things. And you got to rent a house for all the time and the rental car and the whatever. And so what would you say to someone who's listening to this and they're like, well, my partner and I are not at all. Like we want totally different things. He's fine to rent forever. I really want to own a home. Or she really likes to shop, but I want to pay off our debt. Like, what do you say to someone who's not aligned?
So just for the record, so this was posted July 2019. They announced their divorce on June 8th, 2020. So it's a little less than a year later. So not 6 months, little less than a year. So 11 months or so from this podcast to when they announced their divorce.
My best advice would be to try and approach it the way you do with your mother-in-law on holidays on the calendar. Like I'd make a list of all the things that are really important to you and a list of things that are all really important to them, and then lay those lists alongside each other. And if there's some things that align, great. Those are things that can be shared priorities. And then you're playing a game of pick'em dodgeball where you kind of have to decide to go back and forth a little bit and say, look, I'd like to have these two things, and I appreciate that you'd like to have those two things. I'll not chase a couple of the things on my list if you won't chase a couple of things on yours, but at least you can walk out of the conversation agreeing that we're going to see each other at Thanksgiving and Easter, but not 4th of July and New Year's.
Well, I think there's also something to the idea of yours, mine, and ours.
Yeah, that's
like
good.
They're in our younger days, because now we're blessed to be in a place where we don't have to sort of lay it out this way. But in the earlier years of our marriage, to have these are the things that we're working on together. These are the things, like basically our biggest expense back in the day. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't have vacations. We owned a townhouse and we had a mortgage.
Bullshit. Dave traveled a lot for work, and he would take her to Argentina. They went to Spain. They went to Europe within a year or so of their getting married. So bullshit. We didn't go anywhere. You guys went a lot of places. Now, whether they spent thousands and thousands of dollars on it, I don't know. But I went back all the way through her Instagram, and there was trips upon trips upon trips from the beginning, not of their marriage, but of the beginning of her experience on Instagram. So I don't believe that in 15 years they didn't go anywhere until just a couple years ago, because that's not accurate.
And so that's where our money went. But then there were certain things, like you had a budget that you could spend on, what's the baseball thing you do where you play other people with your fake league?
It's called fantasy baseball. And please have a little bit more reverence for it.
Okay, so like you could spend the money on fantasy baseball, or like going to get drinks with your friends or whatever. And I might spend my entire budget in the month on Starbucks, which you could find totally ridiculous because that's not your thing.
It is not my thing.
But it was my thing.
It's still not my thing.
It is now, baby, with Heidi Powell, the Starbucks queen, the marshmallow dream bar. I was going to say muncher, but I think that has a negative connotation. The marshmallow dream bar desirer. He's in the Starbucks drive-thru every single day now, and that's where you belong, Dave. In the passenger seat of the Starbucks drive-thru.
Yeah, but
I drink that coffee because you forced me to.
No, but what I'm saying is, I think that there's something really powerful about deciding together what your budget is as individuals, and whatever your person wants to do with that money, you don't get an opinion on that.
Yeah, and I will. So different kind of topic, but somewhat adjacent to this. If you're in a relationship where there is 100% parity in how money comes into the household, you're a unicorn. Congratulations. I mean, like one partner and other partner each contribute equally to the finances of the house. It's very rare. And I bring it up in part because there was, for a decent season of our relationship, me as a primary breadwinner.
Okay, here's a question. Are Heidi and Dave still together? I don't know. I think yes. According to Reddit, Heidi has a paid subscription option now on her Instagram, which I am not going to pay for. But she posted a photo of her mom and her like going to Newport Beach in California on her public non-subscription side. And then on her subscription one, she posted a video in which Dave was there on the plane. And that's as recent as like this week. So, I mean, she's claiming or sort of insinuating that they're not together. He's sort of hiding that they're together, but there has been many, examples of, you see Heidi's stories got his countertop on it. And so I think they're trying to be more on the down low about it than they have been in the past. But I think, yes, they're still together is my guess. Now, I have no idea, but that's my theory here.
Or the family, or at least more of a contributor to the mortgage, or more of a contributor to the car payment. I was making more money, so I was contributing more. And because of that, I think on an unconscious level, I feel like a jerk for saying this out loud, but I'm going to be honest, felt like I deserved to spend a little bit more of the discretionary money in ways that I wanted because I was the person who was making that money. And I just don't believe that now. I think that was an immature version of the way
Now that I make more money.
Yeah, 100%. Now that you make more money, I think that was a bad way for me to think. And I don't.
Now that I make more money, you poor pauper boy. Yeah, as soon as she made more money, peace, divorce. Now I'm going to find someone who makes more money than me. That's what she did to then eventually try to win him because she won the competition. Now the game is done. Now she's got to start it all over again. I see your ways.
Want you to decide how we spend all of our discretionary money.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
What's so interesting, I talked about this a little bit. I'm trying to think of when. I don't know if it was either at Rise or on a recent podcast I talked about this, and it was a very small moment, but it was the thing that most people commented on. Oh, it was in coaching, in business coaching, because I taught on finances, and I told the story of how...
You taught on finances, flash forward 2 years. I'm in millions of dollars of debt. Don't buy coaching courses from anyone about anything. None of them. Don't do it.
This will not be everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Okay, I'm changing my opinion on that. Don't buy coaching courses from anyone who's not qualified to give them. And it has to be a real qualification, a real certification, especially in finances. If they're not if they're not a fiduciary, don't be giving them money, in my opinion, for coaching.
Will not be everybody. There are all kinds of different families out there, and you do what works for you. But I struggled so hard for so many years that there was so much disparity between how much you contributed and how much I contributed.
Yeah.
Like when I finally passed a tipping point where I really started to contribute to our finances in a way that was as strong as you, it was like, I felt like it was like the first time I could take a breath in a decade.
Yeah.
It was such a big deal. And I the only reason I mention it is because so many women sent me notes and said, thank you for talking about that. Because similar to me, there was a lot of shame and guilt. And by the way, I think this happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, male or female. If one part of the relationship is the breadwinner and the other one's an entrepreneur who's like building, and your partner then has to buy into this dream with you that you're building something that's going to matter, you carry a certain amount of shame around the fact that it's not working yet.
Yeah. No, I
and
hear
that
you.
You can't contribute financially in the way that your partner can't, and that your partner is carrying all of that on their back. Mm-hmm. And then there's this part of you that thinks like, I'm doing all this and I don't even have anything to show for it. Like I can't even, one woman wrote me a note and was like, thank you for talking about that. I'm working so hard and my husband's so supportive and we're fine, but like I'm not even making enough money yet to pay for the babysitter. Like he has to pay for the babysitter so that I can go, so he's like doubly supporting.
And this is a very fine line. And I struggle with this too in my own life. So I do appreciate the conversation. Now, I don't know what she's going to say is like the solution other than like make more money than him and then you'll feel better. And I would imagine that comes from when you feel really bad, or she said she couldn't take a breath until she made more money than her husband. Probably comes from, and then this is what I'm putting, because I also struggle with this issue, is I think it comes from feeling like a burden to your family, like a burden to your parents. And that's how I felt growing up, because my dad was like in and out, but my mom was always complaining like, oh, if I didn't have a kid, like I would have more money. If I didn't have you to pay for all this shit for, like I would have a better life. And not that she said that like directly all the time, but that was the insinuation when we would like fight or whatever, or like, oh my God, all your stuff's so expensive. And I had freedom before you and that type of thing. So when you grow, and I don't know if she had those types of conversations with her parents, but for me, when I grew up hearing that, when I got into relationships with men, because I'm, that's what I'm into, I felt like that competitiveness, because I didn't want to feel like a burden again. I've already felt like that for my whole life. I wanted to finally be an equal. And then when you're not making as much money, it's very easy to go, damn, like I'm again burdening this person with my existence. So I relate to that entirely, but I think it's going to therapy and realizing you're good enough as it is. You're not made for more. You're made enough now, is against her logic here. And I think she's just an unhealed person that hasn't gone through therapy yet. And so I pity her in some ways. It sucks to be in that position, to not kind of have clarity and to feel all this pressure all the time to be up there with your husband so that you feel worthy. But you're making millions of dollars giving women advice. I'm like, you're giving bad advice. Just go to therapy. I don't know. Anyways.
And what a blessing to have this partner, but gosh, I feel guilty about it.
The interesting thing is I'm trying to think of a time where I was like, I'm sick of carrying this team on my back.
No, I never felt that, ever.
It never even occurred to me. So it's more, and the thing is, as you're saying out loud, I can appreciate if I were in your shoes, I'd have probably felt the same way.
Yeah.
Because of course you want to be able to show this thing I'm pouring 60, 65, 70 hours a week into, giving blood at the office, staying up late after the kids have gone to bed. You want to be able to show that it's worth it, because in some very, very fundamental way, there's some reflection of your own self-worth that is usually associated with being able to make money from the thing that you are doing.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't get what you were doing every single day. Full confession. There were times when you were like, I got this great idea. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm like, you're going to go do what? But I was like, okay, awesome. And by the way, when I had a company tell me that they wanted to give me a raise or that they wanted to give me a contract, I didn't think of it as good, I got more money for me. It was like, our family has more money. This partnership of ours has money.
That's what I was thinking too, Scout. Good point. This is a very precarious conversation because the word entrepreneur is used very loosely these days, especially in this world at this time in 2019, Rachel Hollis world. She was speaking at doTERRA. She was speaking at Beachbody. She was speaking at these MLM conferences where they believed, the distributors believed currently still, that they were entrepreneurs, when meanwhile they were not entrepreneurs. They were not, in control of their future. If the company shut down, if Beachbody shut down tomorrow, they do not have a business any longer. So, I think and if she, especially at this time, Rachel was not going to be rocking the boat there, saying anything against MLM. But if you're a real entrepreneur, meaning that you control your destiny in the sense of, the product, the timeline, the logistics, all those things, and you have control of that, then yes, maybe you ask for some time from your partner, hey, I need 2 years and I need some capital, and can we do this together? Can you help support the family while I do this? But if you're asking your husband or wife or whoever, hey, I want to join, It Works, I want to join Amway. No, that is, if you don't support that as a partner, that's okay. But I think that you need to flesh out what being an entrepreneur means. And I think saying no as a partner is also okay. I don't think you automatically should be bad partner because you don't support your partner's entrepreneurial endeavors. If they tell you their business plan is to make popcorn and sell it, on the floor of, throw it on the ground and step on it and then give it to people for $1 and that's going to be their dream. I don't know. That's the most random business idea that doesn't make sense, but something that does not make sense, like a business plan that's going to put your family in debt. I think it's okay to fight back against that. And I think sometimes that nuance gets lost in these relationship podcasts where it's like, oh, well, if you support me, that's good. Good partner supports always. It's like, yeah, but if you're going to, go in millions of dollars of debt and you can see that coming from a mile away as a partner, being a good partner is pointing that out and saying, I cannot stand behind this. I'm sorry. But that gets lost in all of this conversation.
It was never,
you are always 100%. I would agree. That was always the way that you were. You never felt like it was your money. I always felt like it was your money.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's not because of you. It's because of me and my own psychology.
Guess what?
So I had no problem buying groceries, getting stuff for our families, buying clothes for our kids. But I would not go buy myself a nice purse. I would not get myself a pair of nice shoes.
Yeah.
In the way that today, And I'm not that into those kind of things, but every once in a while I'll be like, oh, I really want, a pair of sunglasses.
I knew you were going to say it. Yeah.
And I'll just, now I'm like, I'm going to go buy it. I would never do that.
Here, by the way, I mean, I just wrote a full chapter in my book. If you don't need me, you won't love me. I mean, like,
that's what I was going to say, actually. I appreciate you brought it up.
No, I mean, like, I went through a crazy, the baton pass of breadwinner, especially as I'm leaving this job that had for so many years provided.
Dave, you were, okay, this story now at this time, in this place and time, oh my God, my hair, is being told as Dave had a limiting belief about his relationship, that if he was no longer needed financially, that Rachel would leave him, right? That was a limiting belief, a fear that was not true. And he came to the conclusion. I think it was his gut, his intuition telling him, she doesn't really love you that deeply. She's going to leave you if, she doesn't need you financially. And guess what happened? She left him. So I think he was right. And I don't know, it seems like, maybe he should have sought help and go, why do you feel this way? Well, because, I only feel appreciated when she's getting some financial security from me. Otherwise, she doesn't really like me that much. Maybe that's a real thing that was going on that they could have worked on. But instead, it's like, Rachel's way or the highway, it seems. And she's coaching him to believe like, no, it's not that. But I think it was that. I think he was right.
For our family, goodbye salary. Hello entrepreneurship. Hello small business. I mean, we made this decision before Girl Wash Your Face came out. So we didn't have evidence necessarily of all the great stuff that's been happening when everything started taking off and you became not just the breadwinner, but you were able to contribute to our family on a magnitude that was greater than I'd ever been able to. There was something in me that was triggered because I realized that in a backwards way, I associated my ability to provide as an insurance policy, as a reason why you liked me, as a thing that would keep me around, which plays into...
Which 100% turned out to be true. Okay, I have to pee so badly. We're almost done with this sort of 20 minutes. I'm going to pee and then I'll be right back. Okay, so everyone just wait. Please, sorry. Okay, I'm back. All right. We got to get rolling through this. I'm no longer BRB in the bathroom.
Something for me that was about being rejected in 7th grade by Shelley who didn't want to go to that dang dance with me. But like, for whatever reason, I had a very transactional mindset around how like your ability to scale your business as it was continuing to grow was dependent on my income as a backstop in case that great big new idea didn't end up coming together in the way that it, usually you had success. Usually you didn't need the backstop. But the fact that the backstop existed for me was a thing that I associated with part of what made you want me. And then when you don't need my money.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've had so much success that now that you don't need it, I struggled and then I got past it. Like we had some really great, the good thing is like we've had a lot of great conversations that have debunked so much of the crap that I, would have previously probably had to carry on into the old therapist's office and talk to Deborah about. And here it's just like, why am I having this freak out? Let's talk about it in real time. And you being able to walk me off that ledge. Well, thanks, honey. I'm glad you don't like me for my money.
Well, I think, so this is one of the things that we talked about that I was very...
I don't know what she's going to say here, but I think the first thing after, again, like I think I'm sort of with Regina, honestly. I see your comments coming in and I'm sort of on the same page as you. I'm not a Dave supporter. I'm not a Dave fan, but there are more, I think Dave has given more peaks at honesty, more drips of honesty than Rachel has ever. Dave will once in a while say something, or in any podcast he does, out of an hour, he'll give 2 minutes of something honest, but it doesn't come across as helpful. It doesn't come across as making him a better person to give the information that he's giving. So it doesn't go over well, I don't think, probably with his audience, but like, I think he is sort of coming to these conclusions, and he is honestly, I hope, I don't know, feeling this way. And then he's being like, almost like gaslit by Rachel, being like, yeah, no, like that's not what it is. But he's valid in what he's thinking because look at what happened. So, as much as I don't, think Dave should be a guru, at all. I think he does have moments of clarity that he ignores because the clarity moments are like, I'm like, you're so close to getting somewhere that could be beneficial to you and to everyone. But then he takes 20 steps back because he's in this dumbass self-help space where they tell you never to have a critical thought. So anyways.
Helpful, I think, for Dave, and maybe if you have a similar situation in your own relationship, this will help you, is my thing is, I think this relationship is so much stronger and so much more powerful because I don't need anything from you financially.
Yeah.
Like I am in this relationship because I need you.
Holla.
You, Dave, my friend, my partner, my lover.
Easy.
That I think that's so much.
She's full of shit. Right here, like none of this is real. I think he was being real. I think none of this is real on her end because the way she speaks about him now is like he's the most disgusting monster that's ever walked this earth. Like, I could never be comfortable with him. I don't love him. I never really did. I didn't know any better until I met my new boyfriend. It's like, well, then you wouldn't be speaking this way literally less than a year before you get divorced from him.
Stronger, like, wouldn't you want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't need things from you like that, because then they're really just in it for you?
Of course. In this chapter, I end up also talking about how hard it's been in friendships that because of the role I had in different companies on the entertainment side of the business, had perks that I could dangle in front of friends to make them, my plus one at a premiere or
I don't
whatever.
like that you say dangle, because I don't feel like you like dangled it like, oh, be friends with me and you get these things. I think we had a lot of friends.
Let him have his own thoughts, Rachel, as well. This is the toxic positivity coming through, in my opinion. Like, anytime he has and this is what Heidi does to him too, and maybe that's why it's familiar to him. It's like when people have clarity, when they are looking at themselves and going, I need to make change, or I've done something that I don't think is right any longer, let them feel like that is true. If that's how they feel in the moment, allow them to have that and work through it themselves. Not to say, you didn't dangle things in front of it, and you didn't do that. It's like, maybe he did do that. Let him be a bad guy. You know, I think it's like she doesn't want to be associated with someone who would do that. Okay, but if he did do that, he's your husband. So what are you going to do about it? But then, I don't know, then you have to just like change the history. It's like, no, you didn't do that. You didn't do that.
It's that as soon as they knew what you did for a living, were asking you for passes to Disneyland, for premiere tickets, for...
Yeah, but I own some of the responsibility of gaming.
Good, Dave.
I put a little bit of a finger on the scale, as it were, every once in a while because of just insecurity about wanting to have... I mean, like, God, it sounds so pathetic, but just like wanting to have friends, want to be friends. It was like, well, you might not want to be friends with me just for me. So how about these fancy tickets to a premiere, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway.
I relate to that 100%. Dave, thank you for being relatable 3 years ago.
The thing that ended up corrupting basically any of those friendships was I didn't have an ability to parse whether they were actually in relationship for me or actually in relationship for the gift with purchase that came as a part of being my friend. And so I, trust me, understand completely the idea that like finances or anything that has value being a +1 to what it means to be in a relationship, not having that, it's awesome. I love that you don't need me in that capacity because it wasn't ever a thing that was a factor, you know, truly until I had to think about it. And then once I did, I realized, oh, that's garbage to even have it be a thing that was in the back of my head.
So we've talked about family of origin. We've talked.
She's like, I'm done with this, you loser who doesn't have friends like me. I have friends with Dave Ramsey's daughter. Oof. Shut up, weirdo. Back to my conversation now. Doesn't address it at all. Okay, cool.
Essentially, like how you spend, you know, having a conversation with your partner about how you spend, how you want to save, what you're, you know, all that sort of stuff. Are you living debt free? Are you going to take on debt? Having those conversations. I feel like it's important to also talk about being in alignment on how you want to make money. And I don't mean what job you have. I mean, we talked about this before. We did an episode about how we're not like other couples and how we're okay with that. And one of the ways that we are not like other couples is we are very ambitious, and we are very ambitious as it pertains to wealth. And by the way, I didn't say, oh, I want to get rich. I'm talking about wealth. I'm talking about something that is generational. I'm talking about something that my great-great-great-grandchildren will still be benefiting from the work that I'm doing today. And that, to me, is because my great-great-grandparents made sacrifices so that I could live the life that I'm living today. So I think it's important to be in alignment with your partner and have a conversation with your partner of, are we both interested in earning? Am I going to be the main earner? Am I going to be the only earner?
And by the way, we had to say this the last time we brought this up. You may hear the word wealth, and because of the kind of stigma that money tends to have in society, be repulsed by it. Like, how could you? And the point is not that you share the same kind of things that we share, but it's that you actually do the work to identify what you do want to pursue as it pertains to money. We have plenty of friends that have absolutely no interest in doing anything more than getting just a hair more money than they need
to live.
Yeah.
And they're so happy.
And they're the happiest people on earth. God bless them. It's more that you need to know and make.
So we're going to pursue wealth to hope that it fixes our problems until we realize it doesn't.
That what you as an individual want is aligned with the partner that you're in relationship with, because again, that misalignment is a recipe for relational disaster.
I think so. And I think that I imagine there are all kinds of people. So like we have friends who are couples where this is very like gender specific, but it could be either way, but like where he is very ambitious, very focused, hardcore earner, high performer, and she is stay-at-home mama, takes care of the house, and both of them thrive in that. Like, she loves her role, he loves his role, and she loves that he's out there doing that thing, and he loves that he comes home to comfort and care. And
yeah, it's called partnership, Rachel. That's pretty typical. You take on different roles. You don't compete with each other for everything. That's the relationship she wants, is to compete. You know, her boyfriend now, Kez, has a tour. She's going to have a tour. Who's better? Who's got the better tour? That's what I think she's after. And I don't know what Dave was after necessarily. I think he is intrigued by competitive women for some reason. Maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe that's why I still think that Rachel and Dave are the best couple ultimately for each other, and that they should get back together to save their empire. But we'll see.
And a helpmate and like all of those things. As long as you are in agreement that that's what you guys are about. Because what happens so often, again, I'm going to be specific as it pertains to gender, but is that you bring your family of origin and how they functioned. The guy does this, or the girl does this, or one of us does this and the other person does that. And you put those beliefs on your partner. So how that showed up for us was we both were working. We both had careers. I ended up building this company, which was very small at the time. And then I got pregnant, and everybody wanted me to, like, not you, but like everyone's like, well, when you're going to quit your company, you're going to be a stay-at-home mom now.
All of our family, yeah.
All of our family. And then in later years with your job, everybody, oh, your wife works? Why would your wife work? Like, and it was almost some question about you as a man. Like, well, why does your wife need to work? Don't you make like, it was so twisted. And so I think it's important that you as a couple decide, hey, this maybe changes. And
it sounds like you did decide that as a couple. You just said, not you. You're fine with me working. Okay, so who cares? There's always going to be outside influence that's not going to want you to do something. That's the way the world works, unfortunately. Like, just because your mother-in-law thinks something doesn't mean that you need to change their mind about it. You can live a lot, and this is something I'm learning as I go, but you can live without their approval. That's the thing she doesn't get. She's like, everyone needs to bend to my will. I need to be able to work, and everyone needs to worship me about it. It's like, no, they don't. They just need to accept it, which they do, whether they like it or not. They're accepting it because it's your life and your choices. So she brings this story up every 5 seconds. It's like, you sound like you took the advice that you were giving. You and Dave are on the same page. So there's no real reason to keep bringing it up and complaining about it.
Season or two, but this is how I plan to show up. How do you plan to show up? In that you don't assume that your partner is one or the other.
Oh, by the way, I think too, this is not a thing that like you do a one-time check-in and then you just live the rest of your married life together, assuming that no one has any change of heart whatsoever on this topic. Because like there may be for some of you like ambition that when you do decide to have kids changes how you feel about wanting to return to the workforce.
Yes.
And if that's a thing that ends up having a shift in you, you need to make sure that your partner understands that shift has taken place. And the opposite is true too.
Yeah, that's good.
If you're doing the hardest job on earth, staying home with kids and taking care of a house, and one day you wake up and you decide...
I think that's what Rachel doesn't like. She's like, the hardest job on earth isn't staying home with kids. It's running a girl boss empire. That's the hardest job on earth, and I do the hardest job on earth. Don't tell everyone that the hardest job on earth is staying at home. That's not okay with me. I need to always be doing the mostest, the bestest, the earliest, whatever. I need to be on top of all things, and that's why she gets insecure about it.
You know what? They're actually at school for this many hours, and I now want to pursue this side hustle. You got to have that conversation too.
Well, I was going to say, I just thought of a couple that we know where they went into the marriage. They're both working. They have a mortgage. They're working on this together. They decided to have a baby, but never had a conversation about it. And then towards the end of her pregnancy, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom." And the guy was like, "What?" Because without even a conversation, she just assumed this is the plan. And now this man has all of this on his shoulders. So now, obviously, I want to do what my wife wanted to do, but oh my gosh, your salary is going to disappear. And now I have to make up the difference, and we have a mortgage. So I just think we there's that old saying, when you assume, you make it.
I think that's a very rare case where you're not talking. He wouldn't have that discussion earlier, but obviously, yeah, talk about that before you get pregnant, ideally.
Ass out of you and me.
Oh, you have a dirty mouth.
I know.
Ew.
But it's like, don't assume, especially not as it pertains to finances, because it's too important. It's too important.
So then here's the last thing.
Hard
and
cut
then
again.
We have to go because we are still
Me
in
too.
Hawaii for 1.4 days now. I would encourage, if you are in a relationship where one of the two of you, but not both of you, understands where you are financially.
Ooh, yes.
That you, even if it's a thing that you think, I'm not really that into, I don't really care that much, or I don't understand it, that you push to understand, even at the highest level, tops of the trees, where you as a couple are in relationship. For too many years, I was the person who really understood and took care of all of the things that were happening inside of our household financially.
100%.
And as much as, yep, it's a like spiritual gifting. I understand numbers and I get like kind of geeky about how we approach investing or making decisions about, you know, when we were buying a house, going with this lender versus that lender. In a weird way,
you need that.
It had me making decisions that sometimes felt like they weren't fully transparent to what, you know, would normally be total transparency in our relationship. There was a heaviness in carrying that. But then also, when we did start really having joint conversations about every single thing, Rachel's got obviously a ton of opinions about where we should be focused on our philanthropic giving, where we should be focused on or shouldn't be focused on doing anything with, whether in every capacity. So my biggest point is, if you, whether you're the man or the woman, have tended to defer, stay away from, not be involved in the conversations about finances in your relationship, get just involved enough.
Well, go listen to episode 98 of the Rise podcast. I interviewed David Bach about this exact topic.
So good.
He was a financial advisor who just had years and years of women, especially, like if you were in a relationship where you are a woman and you're in a relationship with a man, statistically, you will outlive your partner by 20 years.
What?
20 years statistically.
I don't know if that's true.
So he, as a financial advisor, would have so many women coming into his office between the ages of like 50 and 70 who had lost their husband and had no idea where anything was. No idea what was it. Did they have money? Did they not have money? Never had looked at it. And were in these, his family had owned this firm. And he said these women would come into my dad's office. His dad was the principal. Would come into his dad's office and say like, well, Morty always said that you would take care of me. And his dad, of course I will. And David's thinking, what if my dad was an evil man?
Yeah.
Like these women don't know any better. And so they're putting all of their trust into someone they don't know. Like you've got to know. So go listen to episode 98. If you have already listened to it, he's written so many books, but his most famous for Smart Women Finish Rich. Old school book.
She would love a book written by a man for women. I mean, this is not bad advice necessarily. Like, yeah, you should know as a man, as a woman, you should know what's going on, especially if you're married, legally married, you know, with the courts involved, government in your relationship. You should know your finances so that if something does happen, you're able to handle it. Yes, I think that's sound advice. Now, is it revolutionary? No, it's not. But it also sounds like, you know, I don't know, maybe they're in their bubble where people are upset that she works. I don't know. They live in like 1950s, like Ohio. I don't know. I thought LA was very progressive, but apparently if you seclude yourself enough, you might be shocked that people, I don't know, but want to stay home or want to work or whatever. All right, we're almost done. But the advice itself is fine. I don't have anything to say against it.
On every list in the world, sold a bajillion copies. Go grab it and dig into what you need to know and how do you figure it out. And Saying I don't know or I don't understand finances is not an excuse. I know that most of us did not.
Rachel has said that several times on podcasts very lately in the last 2 years, year or so, has said, I don't understand finances. Okay, so there you go.
Grow up with financial literacy. I did not grow up with financial literacy. It does not mean that you cannot figure it out. Your family of origin and the way that they had or didn't have money is not your death sentence. You have to decide today, like, this is your future, you guys.
Give up your Audi.
This is your future. And
Move to
right now,
Texas.
too many people are throwing away their future and their present, buying crap they don't need to impress people they don't even really like.
Okay, Will Smith.
Most of the members of our community who are struggling financially, I love you, but I talk to you after conferences. I get the notes. It's not because they don't have the means. It's that they have money and then they spend it on stuff they shouldn't be spending it on. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. And if you're not in conversation with your partner, or if you're single, in conversation with yourself about what the intentions are and where you are going financially, you're going to continue to spiral. Have a plan.
What was your plan? Get into $1 million of debt? I don't know. Good work, Rachel. Your advice is fine, but your execution of your own advice is abysmal.
Talk about it. If you don't know how to do it, this is my broken record announcement for the week.
Dave Ramsey.
Every single thing you want to know how to do in life exists on the internet for free right now. So don't tell me that you don't know, because the information is out there, which means you are choosing this ignorance.
Money's one of those things, y'all, in society.
Poor people are choosing to be ignorant. Bow, bow, bow. That should be a quote by Rachel Hollis. Stop choosing to be ignorant.
Maybe in your family, maybe in your household, that can be a little bit taboo. And it is also one of the biggest things that will get in the way of you having an exceptional relationship if you keep it as a taboo. So get out of your own way. Go and have a conversation today about what it is that you, as a couple, value when it comes to finances. Go and have.
I think they value living in separate mansions in Texas and vacationing separately in Hawaii these days. That's the newest conversation in the Dave and Rachel Hollis universe. All right, everybody. This was fun. This was real. This was real fun. Let's, before we leave, say one last hurrah, Merry Christmas to Zelda, our channel manatee. It would be so cool if we can get the webcam up and like actually find Zelda. I'm going to look into it and see if I can get actual images. And maybe I'll print this out and put it on my desk so I can have it at all times to remind us that we are helping manatees every day just by existing and being in this world. Okay, so I have to get ready. I have to pack literally all my stuff in the next 2 hours and hit the airport. But we're going to do Cringefluencers tomorrow from New York. It should be fine, hopefully. And then I'll let you know what's going on for the rest of the week, next week and stuff. Because there's holiday stuff, there's family stuff, there's stuff and stuff, there's stoopy doof, and there's bloopy bloof. So lots to do. I'm going to sing real quick. It's going to be a quick one. And then I'm going to go. So thank you everyone for joining. This was fun. I'm glad that I took a little hiatus from Heidi. Didn't take a hiatus from Heidi. Hiatus from the Hollis verse. And we'll be back again. But I'm glad to take some time apart from it. It's been helping my mental health. So maybe you should also not listen to every episode that they do, because it could help your mental health too. That's my tip of the day. All right, everybody. See you later. Bye. Okay, let me get a song. And we're gonna do it real fast, because Steven is concerned that we're gonna be late for the airport, but he might be right. But I guess we'll never know. Until the flight leaves. Okay, we're gonna make this a Christmas one. We're gonna make this sad Christmas, I guess, because this is the one I already had in my my thingy, my bobber, my library. Here we go. Rainy cannon and starry nights is cool. Nicole Hensley, Jerry, Nicole Campbell, and Clueless Monet. Laura Wallace and Dave Kelly, the perception trainer too. Marley Hannon, A. Conzo, Brian and Nicole, Chels Marie 3. Alaska Blood Tundra has a violin. Also Crystal G and Angela Arnold likes to play too. Louise V and Tiffany. Kimberly Cossey is cool. Darby DeFord and Joms is the best ever. Kimberly Harris smiles so large. Kara Soto is here, and Alice in Wonderland 66 is the sickest. I don't know. 66 is for chicks. Yeah. This Christmas, find yourself a chickadee, and then in a short while, you'll have a chicken, and then you'll have a pet and a friend for life. That's my message on this Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, one day in, and a Happy New Year, but I'll probably talk to you before then. All right, everyone. Goodbye. See you next time.